Chapter 4986. The 6 long swords were scattered in nothingness, floating without a trace of charm. And Yen Fan is also fading irretrievably. I don't want to grab it, I just want you to hand over the fairy to me, so that the fit will be the highest. After a moment of silence, Yen Fan slowly said, yes, but you have to promise me 2 conditions. As long as you can do it, I will give you the immortal body. Heiyun asked, what conditions? Let them go. Heiyun was silent and then said, as long as you give up the fairy body completely, I can promise you to let them go and never kill them? Can. One more condition? Yen Fan slowly closed his eyes. Keep all my sword in the sheath. Heiyun lifted his eyes slightly, but didn't say much, just waved the 6 long swords that had completely lost their charm and sent them into the scabbard at Yen Fan's waist. Give the fairy to me, I will take him out of here. Yen Fan stopped talking, and a ray of glow began to glow above the fairy body. Heiyun smiled, and the whole void figure began to approach. Once it merges and tears the sea of no edges, it is just around the corner. Just when he was about to swallow the fairy, a voice filled with real anger resounded. How dare you! Accompanied by this real anger and loud noise, Heiyun suddenly raised his head, and he saw a rapid burst of light shooting towards him. Because this speed is too fast when he wants to react, it is too late. The light suddenly penetrated his chest, and then burst completely. Immediately afterwards, a crisp scream that shook the sky and the earth, enough to cover the sky, also rushed forward and landed endless golden feathers. There was another cry resounding, and a relatively small golden phoenix treasure came over the sky, disturbing all the breath. Unprepared, Heiyun's emptiness was directly annihilated into nothingness. Quickly, you take him away, I stay. Jiang Li said in a deep voice in the void space that had been stirred up to a little chaos. Jian Wushuang nodded behind her, then quickly took out more than a dozen D-pin pills and stuffed them into Yen Fan's mouth. Wu Wushuang, why are you here? Yen Hu's divine consciousness has been a little confused. Even with the death of Emperor Pin Pill, it can't be recovered for a while. Don't say so much, you have a good night's sleep. Jian Wushuang said quickly, and then returned Yen to Di Qing's arms. Go! Di Qing, Fu Yao Xianjun, and Jian Wushuang quietly disappeared after holding Yen Fan's broken fairy body, as if they had never appeared before. In this eternal nothingness, only Jiang Li stood with his sword. But then, the chaotic aura gathered again, once again condensing the figure of Heiyun. At this moment he can no longer suppress the aura of anger. The various general trends that came over the sky just now did not cause him the slightest harm. Only the sword that penetrated his chest forced him to disintegrate himself and dissolve the terrifying power of that sword. I want your life. Today you have 1 count, don't even think of leaving one alive from my hands. Heiyun was furious, and the infinite chaotic aura came out from all over him, terrifying to the extreme. However, Jiang Li only looked at him contemptuously, as if looking at a pile of inflowing garbage. It's shameful to strengthen myself by devouring the luck of dying immortal. If I cut you with a sword, it is considered to have dirtied my sword. Heiyun looked gloomy. You have exhausted my patience, all become my nourishment. Jiang Li smiled disdainfully, waved his palm, and then a long sword was unsheathed and slashed forward with a terrifying force. Looking for death. The black cloud burst out, and the chaotic breath swallowed and swallowed away. This was another terrible collision. As Yen Fan's sword companion, Jiang Li, who was even more mysterious, seemed not afraid of black clouds at all. The surging sword intent can actually resist it. But Heiyun had obviously lost his patience, and the immortal body he had gotten disappeared in vain. How could this not make him angry? With a wave of his arm, one party suddenly covered the sky and pressed against Jiang Li. Standing in this eternal emptiness, Jiang Li was not afraid. Facing the endless palm above her head, she just slapped the hilt of her waist. In an instant, another 3-long sword came out, strangling away resolutely. If Yen Fan's swordsmanship has an endless momentum, then Jiang Li's swordsmanship is the ultimate expression of majestic and majestic. It was just 3 long swords, but it broke out with an unparalleled general trend, and even the chaotic aura released by the black cloud could not be compared with it. But it was this incomparable general trend that showed signs of decline when faced with the chaotic aura of the Emperor's luck. The three long swords drew up from the sky, blocking the tendency of the endless palm to press down. "Give me annihilation." Heiyun was furious and waved his hand heavily. Accompanied by his swing, the endless palm directly shattered the sword intent and banged on Jiangli. At this moment, the remaining two swords were also swung, and a total of 6 swords rose into the sky at the same time, protecting Jiang Li's immortal body. The martyrdom broke out again in the eternal nothingness. Jiang Li retreated 1,000,000 feet, almost all of the fairy body was almost torn apart, the blood of the gods wetted her clothes, dripping down into the void along the corners of the clothes. The 6 true swords, with a full blow, blocked an emperor's luck, which was an unprecedented rumor. When the infinite sword intent and chaotic aura disappeared, Haiyun's strange figure appeared again. His face was gloomy, mixed with some incredible. He had never thought that the 2 sword immortals had broken his emperor's luck one after another. While furious, there is also fear. Reaching out his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, Jiang Li sneered, his eyes even more disdainful. "If I guessed right, the emperor's luck you control is running out, right? And now you can't derive luck at all, right?" Heiyun heard this, and Yu read www.ukanshu. Calm's eyes flashed a wave of fluctuations. "So what? I killed you in a flash." Jiang Li smiled. "Then you say, how many emperor luck can I intercept you desperately? It's a delusion, go to hell." Heiyun said angrily, slamming at her with his palm. In the next moment, the thousands of emerald green sword intent were like a blade of grass, quietly clinging to Jiang Li's waist and then holding her back. Jiang Li was shocked. Until he saw the figure around him clearly, he was even more shocked. "Wu Wushuang?" Jian Wushuang lowered his eyebrows, nodded and smiled. "I'm here." After she came back to her senses, she was anxious. "Why are you coming back? Don't you know that all we did is to let you go?" "I know, but if I leave like this, I will be in all suffering again and really leave some regrets." Jiang Li was silent. She already knew that Jian Wushuang would make a change. Chapter 4987. He was determined to move forward resolutely even in the face of the black cloud that controls the emperor's heavenly way. An invisible sword is condensed from the hand, with the tip of the sword pointing diagonally to the eternal nothingness. Jiang Li stood up behind him. Although she was hit hard by the emperor's luck, she didn't hurt her roots at all. She quickly took out half of the emperor pin pill from her arms and put it into her mouth, instantly recovering more than half of her injuries. The overbearing medicinal effect of this emperor pin pill has greatly benefited Jiang Li, both the 9th rank Dian Immortal and the Sword Immortal. You must know that these emperor pin pills were all hidden by Emperor Lu Crow before his death, and they were unattainable treasures. The efficacy of one medicine was extremely terrifying. Therefore, Jiang Li was very reluctant to eat the whole emperor pin pill, but only divided one into 2 and ate it in half. Although Jian Wushuang gave her several of them when he was just talent. And being able to squander like this would cost more than a dozen of them. I'm afraid there are only alternatives like Jian Wushuang. Seeing the figure standing in front of him without flinching, Heiyun only felt funny, and then became completely angry. When did even Yanxian dare to fight him? A dust-like guy, dare to confront me? The black cloud roared, and the chaotic atmosphere surged up like a huge river. Jian Wushuang at this moment had his eyes solemn. He is just the peak of immortal relation, even if he can cross the border to kill rank 3, even rank 6 Dian. But at this moment, it was different. His opposite was the 9-turned Dian Immortal who could control the Emperor's luck. This almost crossed a whole great realm, and it was to meet the Emperor's luck. This is an unimaginable and impossible thing. Even if Jian Wushuang once again carried Sandao on his back, there was absolutely no possibility of a battle against Heiyun. The only one who can fight Black Cloud now is the sword of the same realm. Under the powerful medicinal effect of the D-Pin pill, she, who had recovered 90%, quietly stood in front of Jian Wushuang. The 6 swords came out together, turned into a spinning Changhong, swept away, shrouded the chaos that was swallowed by madness in Changhong's sword intent, strangling constantly. "Come on." Jiangli turned his head and said in a deep voice, "Don't do anything in vain, remember that you can't die anyway, because you haven't realized our kendo." Jian Wushuang's heart trembled, and Jiangli had already completely regarded him as an apprentice as he taught the original kendo. "I'm afraid I won't be able to lead you to comprehend my swordsmanship, but Yan Fan will know how to do it. You must take it seriously." She smiled slightly, as heroic and arrogant as when she first met. In the next moment, Jiangli turned around and greeted the chaos in the sky with a touch of Jinghong. There is absolutely no possibility of survival. The Emperor's luck represents absolute control. Under that control, even the sword fairy of the same realm can only die. When Jiangli left, it was for Jian Wushuang to win the possibility of leaving alive. He stood there, only loneliness was left in his eyes. Zuanhei's divine pattern rose from the tips of his hair, and then drifted into nothingness. The straps holding the long hair fell off, and the long hair with a hint of faint gold flew. At this moment, the true shadow of selflessness is added. It represents the guardian way of the universe, the way of killing that represents the great cause and effect of killing, and the unparalleled sword way that contains the sword of the galaxy, lake, and the sea. 3 pluses. This is a magnificent scene. In the pale eternal emptiness, great luck is blooming. With the eternal emptiness of the true shadow of an ego, put his hands together, his eyelids closed tightly, and a steady stream of luck was circulating. Jian Wushuang stood in nothingness, and a 7-star system bloomed in the space between his brows. The huamang of the invisible sword in his hand has never been so prosperous at this moment, and the 3 avenues of luck are returned to the blade, and it escapes infinitely. Facing the chaotic aura that could even extinguish the eternal emptiness, Jian Wushuang drew his sword up. At this moment, even if he died, he did not regret it. With a true shadow of selflessness, and a sword blessed by the 3 great avenues, it is enough to easily kill rank 6 Dian immortal. And on the basis of these, what will happen if the sword intent of the word lake is released? The sword intent of lake is the strongest sword in Xinghe Lake. This is a sword that can't even be imagined, and even Jian Wushuang can't believe its appearance. As long as this sword is out, it is the rule of numerology. This is a sword that even the Emperor can never stop. Wushuang Kendo, Xinghe Jianyuni, 3rd style. This was Jian Wushuang's strongest time, and Jian Yi was the strongest time. In the eternal paleness, a giant gate appears, the gate of luck. It is so magnificent that even the stars of Tsangyu and the plane of heaven are nothing but a shudder in the ocean. It is impossible to use words to describe the magnificence of this giant gate, but it does exist, making everyone who hears it feel incomparable. The supreme air transport composed of light gold, dark red, and sky blue, entangled into a tranquil lake, flows out of the giant gate of the sky. The pale and eternal nothingness was all tainted at this moment. Within the Qian lake, Tsangyu stars and giant sun planets are all being born, and all the Qi luck they are born into is one. Inside the giant gate of the sky, the true shadow of the selfless opened his eyes quietly at this moment. Binoculars seem to contain the universe, and all origins are being born. Then, Wumei Zhenying cried. A drop of tears passed by, like a pity. Jian Wushuang came from Tianmen. Wrapped by supreme luck, it is no longer possible to see his full picture. But the blood of the gods had all rushed out of his immortal body at this moment, and Jiutian Yi Xian seemed to be a little unable to bear that kind of luck, and began to burn. This sword is unstoppable. In the eternal emptiness, 90% of them were swallowed by the chaotic atmosphere. But at this moment, Jiang Li, who was carrying 6 swords and was already planning to confess to Xian Yuan, suddenly opened his eyes. She felt the mighty breath coming from behind her. That kind of breath is magnificent, with an unstoppable momentum. That kind of aura, even her heart palpitations. In the chaos, she looked back with all her strength and saw the scene that made her engraved in her heart. It can no longer be described with a sword, as if it is the common fluctuating movement of the entire universe, magnificent and shocking. Then Jiang Li saw Jian Wushuang approaching with a sword. At this moment, no one can compete with him, even the sword fairy can only be overshadowed. Seeing the sword intent of Qi Luck, all the chaotic auras seemed to have consciousness, and they retreated madly. The black cloud, who was grinning, was shocked when he saw this scene. From the bottom of his heart, there was an incomparable heart palpitations, as if he had returned to the endless years, facing the real emperor's anger. No, it's impossible. How can there be another emperor here? I am the master here. I am the only emperor. Chapter 4988. The black cloud roared hysterically. The horror that swept through the supreme magnificence made him completely timid. He doesn't want to die, he wants to live. Since being exiled to the Sea of No Edge, he can't remember why he is still alive. The only belief that supports him is growth and revenge. Countless Yenxian and Dianxian died tragically under his hands, swallowed by luck. Those luck made him touch the emperor's level. But now, when he hasn't fully grown up, he is overwhelmed by this kind of luck. How can he not be frightened? The black cloud was hysterical and almost became crazy. No one wants to kill me again, including Zhen Weiyang. I am already an emperor. Who can stop me? He roared, and the endless chaotic breath was released from his body. Then a huge chaotic throne appeared. Heiyun raised his arms high, raised the throne of chaos, and smashed away, hoping to stop the sword. Not only the throne of chaos, but also the endless aura of chaos was overwhelmed. In the pale eternal nothingness, this strongest blow was completely released. Through the sword, the endless sword intent is like a blast, stimulating the power of the entire universe in the giant gate, easily tearing the chaotic atmosphere. The chaotic emperor's seat that had severely damaged Yen Fan and contained the emperor's luck, under this strong sword, only lasted for a moment, and then shattered. The sword intent of the word lake is unstoppable. While shattering the Chaos Emperor's seat, Jian Wushuang's right arm holding the sword was completely shattered, and his fairy body simply couldn't withstand this level of impact. Had it not been for the protection of Jiutian Yixian, he would have become a fan at the same time that the chaotic emperor was shattered. But there is no if. Jian Wushuang is still alive, even though his right arm is completely broken. He uses his left arm to hold up the invisible sword and move forward resolutely. Numerous hoarse pains resounded, and the chaotic breath collapsed under the impact. Only the black cloud stood in place, looking at him in disbelief. The eyes are facing each other, and the strong sword will come. Go through with one sword. The eternal emptiness trembles. At this moment, the giant gate of the sky is shattered, and even the universe within it is turned into luck and explodes together. The complexity and terrifying degree of this sword have reached an unimaginable level. Even the eternal emptiness was extinguished, and the breath produced by the terrible explosion made Jiang Li as a sword immortal unable to stand, and was suddenly repulsed by 1,000,000 feet. Divine blood overflowed from the corner of her mouth. Jiang Li was still completely shocked. She began to realize that this sword was released by Jian Wushuang. This sword completely pushed him to the real, another height. That kind of height is the sword fairy. With the body of Yenxian, bored the sword fairy. Jiang Li smiled and then wept. As a sword immortal, how could she not feel this sword? It was too vast and could not be supported by Jian Wushuang's fairy body. This is an absolute sword, he cannot survive at all. A real grief flashed in Jiang Li's eyes, but nothing could be changed. The appearance of this sword is destined to have no room for reversal. The pale eternal nothingness is shattered, and everything is gone. The chaotic atmosphere has completely faded, replaced by a magnificent sword intent. The meaning of sword becomes a sea, and everything is endless. Jiang Li didn't stay anymore and went to search like crazy. In the sea of swords, the injuries on her body are recovering at a slow speed, as if being wrapped in shingri. But the more flustered she became, until after searching the entire Zhenhai, she didn't see any trace of Jian Wushuang. Really, terrible Junior. A hoarse voice that couldn't hold back the pain resounded in the dying void. Then a great power descended, erasing the endless sword sea. Only then did Jiang Li see their figures. Haiyun's immortal body, which was originally nothingness, had been completely shattered, and was slowly and continuously spliced together, but at the position of his heart, a trace of the sword cut could not heal anyway. On the opposite side of the black cloud, there is a more broken fairy. Almost all his celestial bodies except his chest were shattered, the blood of the gods had long been drained, and the bones of the celestial bodies were shattered. Only Jiutian Yi Xian still exudes the blue meaning. Under the strong sword, his arms no longer exist, and the pupils of the meaning of pure gold have completely dimmed. He just stood there, but anyone could see that his vitality was being lost irretrievably. The traces of numerology have completely disappeared. This is a complete death. Like a broken meteor, countless stars soared out from behind him, turning into a smear of nebula to fill the eternal nothingness of the endless sea. Jiang Li went crazy and rushed to Jian Wushuang's face. When he reached out and touched him, he fell on his back. The already bleak golden eyes are chaotic to the extreme, which is a symbol of the disappearance of traces of numerology. Although his immortal body is still there, it has truly died out. Seeing this scene, Heiyun whispered, "I killed a seedling who can become an emperor. I killed a seedling who can become an emperor." Jiang Li couldn't speak, and he was crying secretly around Jian Wushuang's immortal body whose numerology was broken. Immediately afterwards, the dark cloud was in shock. His eyes were completely replaced by greed. He looked at Jian Wushuang's fairy body. "Give me his fairy body, I will let you go. I only want his fairy body," Heiyun said solemnly. Jiang Li suddenly raised his head, his eyes full of determination. "I will kill you." Looking for death. Heiyun was furious, lifted his palm and wanted to smash forward. But his big palm did not fall. Instead he backed away quickly with extreme panic. Heiyun was completely speechless in shock. He saw a scene that was impossible to appear. This unimaginable scene even horrified him even more than seeing Zhen Weiyang. Because he saw the three true shadows in the royal clothes. And the emperor clothes, only emperors can wear. Those are three true emperors. At this moment Yang Jun, Su He, and Dao Gong walked out of the Poyang bottle, standing behind Jiang Li, looking at the black clouds with solemn eyes. They completely witnessed and knew Jian Wushuang's irreversible death of the previous magnificent battle. It was precisely because of this that they were so angry that they walked out of the Poyang bottle regardless of their true soul state. Who are you? Don't pretend to be fools." Heiyun was already completely shocked, and the panic in his eyes revealed his state of mind at this time. He didn't believe it anyhow. He would bump into three emperors at the same time. When would the emperor be so overwhelmed that there were three in a row? But without waiting for him to question, when the kind of emperor Hui who belongs to the emperor can be condensed, his face is ashamed. The so-called Dihui is a symbol of the real emperor's luck, and the difficulty of cohesion. Even he who has realized the emperor's luck has no way to condense. Chapter 4989. Once you have Dihui, you are the real emperor. Facing that Dihui, the black cloud's face was as gray as death, and he didn't even have the thought to resist. The three emperors could not resist this at all. Jiang Li was also shocked. She never thought that three emperors would appear together, which was even more impossible. In her memory, even that chaotic era does not seem to happen. Leave with his immortal body. Yang Jun, a tall and thin old man in the emperor's clothes, looked at Jiang Li and said, then stretched out his hand to release Emperor Jian Wushuang's immortal body. Jiang Li was startled, then gratefully looked at Sandijuan, quickly picked up Jian Wushuang, and left for the endless void. Seeing this scene, Haiyun's eyes were dripping blood. The coveting of the immortal Jian Wushuang had even exceeded the fear of the three emperors. Jian Wushuang's immortal body is an indispensable thing for him to achieve godless king. He can't just let Jiang Li leave. And almost at the same time that Jiang Li was leaving, Heiyun's footsteps were going to chase after him. "How dare you!" Dao Gong shouted. Wu Shenhui followed overwhelmingly, blocking the road ahead of Heiyun. "Don't stop me!" Heiyun is already close to madness. In order to obtain Jian Wushuang's immortal body, in order to become godless king, so that he is not afraid of three emperors. "I want to become the emperor. No one can stop me today," whoever stops me, even if my luck is gone, it will never make you feel good." The three emperors heard the words and looked at each other, and they all saw the meaning of decisiveness in the eyes of the other party. Having lost their emperor body, they have always been in a true soul state, and even under the nourishment of the Bo-yang bottle, they are still weak. Facing the almost maddened Heiyun, they had no chance of winning. But they are still determined. Wake up and stop sleeping. Nothingness is ethereal, like smoke, like dust, like dream, like illusion. Everything seems like a world away. It is a kind of unspeakable pain, deep in spiritual thoughts. As if drowning on the shore, he suddenly opened his eyes, and as his eyes opened, the broken fairy body completely recovered in an instant. As far as I can see, it is a psychedelic realm like smoke and dust. He panted heavily, and unknown luck began to flow around him again. Where is this? Am I already dead? You haven't died now, but without me, you would have died before. A figure wearing an imperial suit gradually became clear, and then stood in front of him. Jian Wushuang Wuxian's eyes narrowed slightly. He couldn't be more familiar with this figure. It is the Emperor of Zhenwu, the Emperor of Zhenwu who rests in the heavenly palace on the White Bone Road, under the river of blood and bones. It was when you were about to fall, I shot and held your true soul in the ring, otherwise it would be impossible to withstand your own sword in your realm. Emperor Zhenwu said, looking at him. Jian Wushuang came back to his senses, and tried his best to reluctantly hand over, "Thank you for your life-saving grace, I wrote it down." Emperor Zhenwu didn't speak, until a moment later he said, "Your previous performance was something I didn't imagine. I thought you were just a little Yenxian with a good talent and some chances, but now it seems I was wrong. You are an immortal who cannot be guessed or guessed." Speaking of this, Emperor Zhenwu slowly lowered his head, looked at Jian Wushuang's true eyes, and quietly burst out a killing intent. "You said, should I kill a good seedling that can become an emperor now?" Jian Wushuang's eyes suddenly opened, and then he recovered his composure. "You won't kill me, at least not now." Emperor Zhenwu Jundao, "Tell me the reason, a reason not to kill you." When the matter was over, he had to gritted his teeth and said, "Only I can leave here. Once you kill me, you don't want to leave here. If you lie to me, you can't live without it. I will never lie to you. If you realize that I lie to you by then, it will not be too late for you to do it again." Hearing these words, Emperor Zhenwu smiled unclearly. "Then I will save you for the time being, but if you have to say, if you do the same stupid thing as before, don't blame me for being rude." Jian Wushuang nodded, a wisp of cold sweat streaming from his temples. Since Emperor Zenwis's gaze burst out with murderous intent just now, he knew that for a moment, Emperor Zhenwu absolutely wanted to do something against him. But because of scruples, he didn't hurt him. And this scruples is to use his hand to escape from this endless sea. Anxiety flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Emperor Zhenwu was definitely not a good person. If he could escape from the borderless sea, he might not be able to escape the poisonous hand. Failure to escape is death, and it is very likely that escape is death, which makes Jian Wushuang extremely big for a while. But soon he wanted to drive. The top priority now is not to think about the future, but to solve the dark cloud. Thinking of this, he looked around. "Where is this?" "In your ring." "Then can I wake up?" "Of course, you can at any time, but I want to warn you, don't do those stupid things anymore. Some Dian immortals can be thrown away after you use them. They are just the cornerstone of your progress." Jian Wushuang curled his lips secretly, completely taking what he said as farting. But then, Emperor Zenwis's words made him sweat in a cold sweat. "Don't forget, I can know what you are thinking. I'm wrong." In the endless void, Jian Wushuang, who was supported by Jiang Li, quietly opened his eyes at this moment. The chaos and gloom faded, Qijin reappeared in his pupils, and the broken fairy body slowly recovered. Boom! In the dying nihility, the Emperor radiates all the chaotic atmosphere. But under that chaotic atmosphere, even though Di Hui was brilliant, it was already a bit declining. The true soul of the three emperors was still too weak after all. Their emperor body was completely deprived, only the true soul was left. Facing the Emperor Black Cloud, they could no longer deal with it. Heiyun also calmed down from the previous shock and anger, only to discover the weakness of the three emperors, and was overjoyed. The three emperors who caused limited damage to him, in his view, are truly delicacies. Once their emperor's luck is swallowed, I am afraid that without Jian Wushuang's immortal body, he can directly become Wu Shenjun. It's so lucky that I deserve to be the emperor today. Heiyun laughed wildly, a unique suction centered on him, sweeping out. The three emperors who were struggling to resist saw this, their complexion changed slightly. You two go first, here I will bear it, Dao Gong said suddenly, with indisputable words. Chapter 4990. Hearing this, Yang Jun hummed heavily and said angrily, Dao Gong, what do you mean? I can't look down on this emperor? Dao Gong nodded without hesitation, yes, I just can't look at you, and staying still won't help much, so I should leave as soon as possible. Dao Gong Lao Air, you are shameless, I knew I would not help your broken heavens, let it fend for itself. It's as if you were rescued. If you come a moment later, I thought you were drinking with Zhenwiang. Damn it, Dao Gong, you don't want to insult me. Looking at the two emperors who were about to fight first, Su He, who dared not say anything, began to dissuade him. Okay, well, they are all old brothers for so many years. The quarrel depends on the occasion. Su He, don't pretend to be a good person, because the great heaven official and Dian immortal who belong to your heavenly court are not up to the grade, which led to the loss of the original. Fucking I did it with you. Seeing the three emperors who were fighting each other, the black cloud on the side almost laughed out loud, overjoyed in my heart. You must know that under the sword of Jian Wushuang earlier, he was seriously injured, and even if the three emperors were unhelpful, they could use Dihui to inflict wounds on him. But now, there is nothing better than their infighting and fighting each other. Heiyun even only needs to attack from the side to subdue the three emperors without any effort. Heiyun couldn't restrain his excitement when he thought of Sandaijin's true soul and energy luck, which would be swallowed and absorbed by himself in a moment. As long as he can absorb them all, then he will be able to tear open the borderless sea and become a true emperor. Feeling the infinite aura of chaos all over his body relaxed slightly, the three emperors who were fighting each other suddenly stopped working and looked at each other extremely quickly. In the next moment, they suddenly burst out of incomparable Dihui, and then, like a shining rainbow, directly broke through the chaotic atmosphere and rushed towards the endless void. The black cloud, who was still sitting on the mountain watching the tigers fight, was shocked at the sight of this scene and hurriedly turned into endless chaos and rushed forward. Run, that guy is going to catch up. Dao Gong shouted, Yang Jun, stay behind to stop the enemy. Yang Jun, who ran faster than the other two emperors, didn't even look back at this time. It is wishful thinking to want this emperor to cushion your back. It depends on who can run away. Don't worry, you can turn your head. I will let Wushuang burn some paper money for you. Fucking, the emperor ate you alive. Want to go? As a quasi-emperor, Heiyun has suffered successive damages, but facing the true soul of the three emperors, his strength is still more than enough. However, he caught up in a flash, his palms suddenly emptied, and the endless chaos aura fell. Although he was wounded, but with only the real soul and no entity, the damage of Jian Wushuang's sword was reduced to the minimum, so now he is still alive and well. Seeing the overwhelming atmosphere of chaos over his head, Dao Gong at the end gritted his teeth and stopped directly, then turned to face the chaotic atmosphere and released Dihui with all his strength. He wants to block this breath with his own power and buy time for them to leave. The magnificent Dihui collided with the chaotic atmosphere, violent to the extreme. Dao Gong was forced to retreat thousands of feet, and the true shadow of Emperor was even a little bleak. But he still never took a step back, manipulating Dihui to abruptly block the chaos. Just when he was already a little tired and couldn't stop him, the two figures, infinite Dihui, overturned. None of Yang Jun and Su He left. Didn't you let you leave? Why are you still staying? Dao Gong eagerly shouted in a deep voice. Yang Jun curled his lips. If you let us leave, we will leave. Find out our identity. You are the emperor, and we are also the emperor. We are in an equal position. If we just leave like this, wouldn't we fall behind? If you want to go together, if you want to stay, then stay together. Suhi smiled. We never took a step back when heaven was destroyed, let alone now? You guys. Dao Gong sighed quietly, but then his eyes became firm. Okay, let's do it this last time. Yang Jun laughed when he heard the words, this is right. How dare you fight against the emperor, this bug-like junior? After speaking these last words, the three emperors laughed at the same time. The chaotic aura was also torn apart by Di Hui, and the black cloud quickly retreated, looking at them very vigilantly. Three emperors stepped forward slowly, looking at the dark clouds that were full of gloom with disdain. The Dian immortal made by you like this is also worthy of understanding the emperor's luck? Dao Gong said angrily, don't humiliate the emperor's name. If this is the first time when my heaven is still there, I will be the first. You are the one who killed. He laughed strangely when he heard the words, still worry about yourselves. Only when you become one with me, you won't be able to stay alive. Just because you are like a bug, you deserve to be on the same level as us? Yang Jun disdainfully stepped out, and layers of Di Hui flowed around him. At this moment, the three of them seemed to return to the sky and became the Lord of Heaven. 3 emperors are enough to destroy the quartet. Even if the Tianhe River dries up and the heavenly cord is broken, they still cannot change the fact that they are emperors. Even though Heiyun is the quasi-emperor, he still felt fear in the face of the real emperor. That is a deep-seated fear, suppressed by blood. At the beginning, the emperor was not afraid of true Wuyang, let alone you bugs. Suhi said loudly, this emperor is going to destroy the quartet again today. At this moment, the 3 emperors returned to the beginning. The incomparable Di Hui shone out and shattered the quartet. Heiyun didn't dare to entrust him. Even if he believed that he had eaten them, he did not dare to slack in the slightest. Thinking of this, a huge chaotic emperor resurfaced behind him, with an unimaginable momentum, and crashed into the 3 emperors. The extinguished nihility broke out once again with a shocking momentum. The chaotic emperor swept over with chaotic aura, madly swallowing the escaped Di Hui. As the black cloud that swallowed Dian Immortal step by step, it was no problem to swallow Di Hui. He stood in the void, his belly rolled up, swallowing in an unimaginable situation. However, the 3 emperors are still the 3 emperors, as terrifying beings who could fight against Jin Wuyang emperors in that ancient age. Even so, they only have the true souls left, but they are still powerful. They have experienced the collapse of the heavens, millions of immortals have become enemies, and they have not been afraid of a moment when they walked out of the sea of blood. A little quasi-emperor, not even a quasi-emperor, they really disdain. Chapter 4991. Di Hui shines, chaos comes. Facing the chaotic emperor's seat, the 3 emperors never took a step back. Although Di Hui was suppressed, and even retreated steadily, he was still suppressing the chaotic atmosphere at a speed visible to the naked eye. Heiyun became more panicked. He thought he had already eaten the true soul of the 3 emperors, but as time passed and his own strength continued to fade, he began to panic. If you don't swallow them in a short time, I'm afraid it will change again. Thinking of this, Heiyun shouted angrily, manipulating the huge chaotic emperor directly to smash it. As the throne burst open, he opened his arms again, exploding into an unimaginable trend. The endless chaos aura condensed from behind him, and turned into an ugly and magnificent supreme face. The huge face was so ugly, a big mouth occupies almost 2/3 of the size of the whole face, and when he appeared, he opened the huge mouth, releasing strong suction. Under this suction force, even Di Hui couldn't hold on, it was a little broken, and even the emptiness of nirvana was swallowed by the giant face. The true soul of the 3 emperors who resisted hard was really weak at this moment. Come on, one can go, there is no need to stay here. Dao Gong said in a deep voice. Don't forget, if we all stay here, how can we find the old man from Zhen Wuyang to avenge the old man in the future? Yang Jun is going, he is the worst. Suhi said loudly. Yang Jun was immediately extremely embarrassed and angry. Why dare you to make fun of this emperor? That emperor will not leave today, I will let you see who can't. After he finished speaking, The endless Dihui burst out from the palm of his hand, even covering Su He and Dao Gong for a while. After a while, Dao Gong said in a deep voice, "Su He Yongjun, you go first, I will stay with it for a while, don't kill our last true soul here. Think, go. Also depends on whether you can leave." Yang Jun's face turned red, and he was already doing his best to prevent the chaos from corroding. Dao Gong didn't say much anymore, and while Yang Jun and Su He were full of attention, he directly shook them 200 meters away with a palm, keeping them away from this chaotic place. "Go fast, don't take a step back. If anyone takes a step back, I respectfully break the true soul on the spot." He shouted angrily, full of indisputable determination. At this moment, Yang Jun and Suha were stunned in place, unable to speak, and unable to return to his senses for a long time. "Hurry up!" Dao Gong was already at the end of the crossbow, and the endless Dihui was about to be swallowed by the chaotic aura. Old fellow we. Yang Jun murmured. Su He didn't wait for him to finish speaking, and immediately grabbed him and swept away into the distant void, without seeing any traces in a moment. Heiyun was very anxious when he saw this. He definitely couldn't let them escape. "Want to chase them? Go through this emperor first, little bug." Dao Gong laughed and manipulated Di Hui to directly block his way. "You're looking for death." Heiyun was furious and slammed down with his palm. Dao Gong took the initiative to respond, but he was already extremely weak, unable to deal with it effectively, and the last layer of Dihui was heavily shattered. Then Heiyun manipulated the chaotic breath, turned it into a big palm, and grabbed him. Dao Gong still laughed, and his gaze at Heiyun was still contemptuous. "Being controlled by you is really detrimental to the emperor's prestige." After he said these last words, there was no hesitation in the true soul of Broken Emperor. Heiyun smiled weirdly, and the ugly giant face behind him opened his mouth to swallow Dao Gong in, and prevented him from breaking his true soul. An emperor's true soul fell into his abdomen, and he shuddered with excitement, and he could clearly feel the increase in strength. "As long as you swallow the other two, you can enter the realm of the emperor." After trying to understand this, his body shape was directly decomposed, turned into inexhaustible chaos and disappeared into nothingness. Su He, the old guy's breath is gone. In the void, Yang Jun stopped abruptly and turned around to look towards the endless void. Su He also stopped, loneliness flashed deep in his eyes. Has he gone too?" Yang Jun slowly closed his eyes, his voice was low and hoarse. "Su He, I'm tired." "Don't be tired, we still have things to do." Su He suddenly opened his eyes. "We still need to find Jin Weong Lao heir to avenge Dao Gong. Do we still have a chance?" Su He was stunned, and he thought of Jian Wushuang in his mind, and he nodded his head immediately. "Of course, as long as we don't fall, everything can be done." Yang Jun's eyes gradually became clear. "Then leave here and make plans later." As his voice fell, the entire dying void suddenly appeared in the shape of a black cloud. "Want to leave? How am I willing to let you leave? All in my stomach." He smiled weirdly and waved down a chaotic cage. The cage was pressed down, completely enclosing the two emperors. Yang Jun looked at Su He with a bit of bitterness in his eyes. "This time, we really can't do without." The black cloud laughed wildly, and the huge face behind it opened its mouth and swallowed it in an instant. Yang Jun and Su He only felt that the Dihui in their bodies was fading quickly, and even the true soul began to dim. "It's really unpleasant. I knew it was so. I ended up with Zhen Weong in the first place. How could I end up in this situation?" Su He shook his head and sighed. Yang Jun also sighed slightly. Everything was already powerless. Falling in this nameless place, in the hands of the nameless, really refutes the emperor's face, but everything is so helpless. But the imaginary scene did not happen. The huge chaotic cage burst and shattered in the next moment without any warning. Both Yang Jun and Su He were shocked, and then subconsciously looked at the place where the cage was broken. Only disbelief remained in their eyes. "No, Wushuang." Along with the retreat of endless chaos, Jian Wushuang led the sword with his hand and stepped into the air. Jiao Tian Yixian exudes the meaning of sky blue. You reading www. Akanshu. On his chest, there was unimaginable luck. Behind him stood Jiang Lian Return, Diqing and Fu Yao Xianjun. They all should have left, but now they all returned. But at this moment, both Yang Jun and Su He looked at Jian Wushuang, leaving only an incredible shock in their eyes. They felt very clearly that the ancient luck flowing out of Jian Wushuang's body was so terrifying and so familiar. That kind of luck is the Emperor's luck. Jian Wushuang, carrying the Emperor's luck. Not only did they feel it, but even Heiyun felt it, and the panic in his eyes had reached the point where it could not be added. The last moment he had no luck, he was too dead to die, but he came back alive in half a day. This is too unimaginable. Chapter 4992. What is even more unimaginable is that Jian Wushuang's whole body is flowing out of Emperor luck. You know, even the Black Cloud, who is a quasi-emperor, can't cover the Emperor's luck. Only the real Emperor can do it. At this moment, Jian Wushuang did it. Not only did he do it, but he also directly released Dihui. Heiyun was already horrified and couldn't say anything. Even if he didn't believe it anymore, this scene still appeared in front of him. The mere triumphant emperor who hit him severely with a single sword, at this moment became the emperor with the luck of the emperor. Escape! This is the only thought left in Heiyun's mind. He has never been willing to do two dangerous things since growing up. For example, Jian Wushuang at the moment, he is really weird, but in the realm of Yanxian, he has made a series of shocking forces. Even when he was the Emperor Zhuan, his heart trembled when he saw Jian Wushuang. Thinking of this, Heiyun didn't hesitate anymore, he straightened his body and wanted to flee. However, with the Emperor's luck, his eyes showed Jian Wushuang, who was awe-inspiring, and he hummed coldly, "Want to leave?" At this moment, with the same force of heaven and earth surrendering to his feet, an unimaginable emperor's heavenly path was suppressed and hit the Black Cloud heavily. Heiyun was shocked, he fled in a panic, but in any case could not escape the control of Emperor Heaven. But in an instant he was firmly held down by the Emperor Tiandao. Even if he changed a lot, he would never escape the slightest. Seeing him catching the Black Cloud almost effortlessly, Yang Jun and Su's two emperors were so startled that their jaws almost fell to the ground. They didn't believe that Jian Wushuang was carrying the emperor's luck, but now they all believed it. Not only the two emperors, but Jiang Lian's return to the two sword immortals, as well as the immortals Diqing and Fuyao were shocked. You know, they were far from understanding what was going on. They saw Jian Wushuang become emperor in a daze, and then raised his hand to catch Heiyun. Jiang Lian glanced back at each other, seeing a bitterness in the other's eyes. The apprentice they strongly recognized has far exceeded their expectations. Jian Wushuang, who carried the extremely heavy emperor's luck on his body, waved lightly in the air, and the immovable black cloud suppressed by the emperor's heavenly way was forced to come to him. Facing the real emperor's luck, Heiyun was so frightened that he could not be added. He was just a quasi-emperor. How could he dare to resist the real emperor? At this moment, Jian Wushuang was like a different person. His eyes were full of majesty, and there was no emotion. And all this is also because of Emperor Zhenwu. In the previous Zhenwu emperor, a strand of Jian Wushuang's true soul had been arrested and hidden in the ring to avoid his direct death. After recovering, Jian Wushuang did not heed his warning and insisted on saving the three emperors and Jiang Lian. In desperation, Emperor Zhenwu wanted to use his luck to make him suffer. But never thought that Jian Wushuang's fairy body could perfectly fit his emperor's luck without any repulsive behavior. This surprised Emperor Zhenwu at the same time and agreed to help inject the emperor's luck into his body within the range Jian Wushuang's immortal body could bear. This made Jian Wushuang carry the emperor's way of heaven and became the emperor in a short time. Jian Wushuang, who became an emperor, the first thing is to find the black cloud and seal it. Feeling the emperor's luck like an arm, he looked at the black cloud in front of him and waved to kill. But at this time, Yang Jun and Su he said anxiously, "Wait, Wushuang, Dao Gong is still in his stomach." Jian Wushuang heard this and looked at the black cloud again. Heiyun trembled. "Let me go, I am willing to return him." He smiled contemptuously, and then he dissected it by himself. "No, "You can't, I promise you, I will return it immediately." But it was too late. Jian Wushuang used his hand as a sword, and opened his belly with a single sword. In an instant, the void of dying, trembling, endless chaos rushed out, frantic to the extreme. However, this chaos was directly wiped out by Jian Wushuang with a palm. With the Emperor's luck, he is already too terrifying, even the quasi-Emperor Black Cloud can only be slaughtered. Along with the chaotic breath surging out, there was another true soul that almost became transparent. That true soul is Tao Gong. Yang Jun Suha rushed over, laughed and patted Tao Gong, who was still in a state of confusion. "Old thing, congratulations, you haven't left before us." "I haven't fallen yet, I shouldn't, I remember I was breathless." Dao scratched his head respectfully. "If it wasn't for Wushuang, little friend, you would be gone, so thank you." Yang Jun patted him and blamed. Dao Gong reacted and quickly looked at Jian Wushuang. Under this look, his eyes almost flew out. "I'm going, how long have I slept, and Wushuang little friends have become emperors? It didn't take long before I slept for less than half a day." What? Using godless King Heaven to break the Black Cloud, his remaining emperor's luck and chaos are all wiped out, dying, and it seems likely to fall at any time. But even so, he still tried his best to say, "Let go, let me go, I will disappear." Jian Wushuang sneered coldly, as if he had heard the funniest thing. Everything that happened today was caused by the dark clouds. Jiang Lian was almost seriously injured and dying. The three emperors almost died in order to save him. Even he himself, if it weren't for the help of Emperor Zhenwu, would have disappeared. Therefore, Heiyun must die today. Even if he is a quasi-emperor, he cannot escape death. The emperor with Zhenwu Emperor's luck is added. www. Novel. Jian Wushuang has the strength to cover the Black Cloud. Looking at the dying Black Cloud, he was ready to kill it with a palm. But just as he waved his palm, his gaze penetrated the hazy black mist and saw a thing emitting a colorful halo in the belly of the Black Cloud hole. Jian Wushuang didn't know what it was, and with a subconscious wave of his palm, he pulled it out of Haiyun's body. Haiyun's eyes dimmed for an instant, and his emptiness of immortal body quickly died out at this moment. As soon as this thing came out, it suddenly became magnificent and glorious for hundreds of thousands of miles, and all the colors dimmed. It was a shiny ink bone as long as a forearm. The unspeakable mystery runes seemed to have been flowing since the ancient times, making the hearers have an urge to worship. And the three emperors who watched this scene from a distance, all of their complexions changed slightly, and they couldn't help but say in unison, "Emperor Bones." Chapter 4993. Emperor Bone. It is the symbol of the peak Dian immortal ascending to the throne of emperor and controlling Emperor Hui. Once the bones of the emperor are condensed, it means that the road to the emperor has been opened. This is the bone of the emperor that is side by side with the emperor and the emperor's heaven. For the emperor, it is a forbidden existence. The three emperors did not expect that the black clouds had already condensed the emperor bones. If he was not too greedy and provoked Jian Wushuang, and this series of battles broke out, he would definitely be able to create a heavenly court and ascend the emperor's position within the 5-year period. But there is no if. The evil consequences he created can only be eaten by himself. The black cloud that was pulled out of the emperor's bones by Shengxing wailed miserably, and the sound shook the nirvana. "Give it back to me, give it back to me." He was completely mad, reaching out and grabbing Jian Wushuang. But Jian Wushuang, with the emperor's luck flowing all over his body, was no longer something he could touch. Almost at the same time, the emperor's luck shattered his arms. Losing the bones of the emperor, and being cut off by the emperor heaven, Heiyun fell into despair. Even if Jian Wushuang does not kill him now, losing the emperor bone means that he will live forever and never become an emperor. Looking at the Moyu emperor's sovereign bone in his hand that was as long as the forearm, Jian Wushuang thought for a moment, and instead of destroying it, he placed it in the Boyang bottle. Losing the emperor's bones, the black cloud face was like ashes. His emperor's luck began to slowly collapse, and the phantom without the immortal body gradually dimmed. Seeing that everything was powerless, he was completely desperate, and then the dark pupils suddenly exuded an aura of destruction. Jian Wushuang sensed something was wrong and hurriedly reached out to destroy him. But a strange scene appeared. When Emperor Tiandao smashed into the black cloud, he was suddenly blocked by a layer of invisible and qualitative fluctuations, and he couldn't make any further progress. The black cloud swept away the previous panic and replaced it with madness and destruction. At the same time, the chaotic aura that had almost completely disappeared rushed out of his open belly again. "I am the Emperor, who can kill me? I can only die in my own hands," he roared. "Those who want to kill me have become a part of me. Today, even if I am destroyed, I will let you, and this entire sea of boundless burials for me." As his voice fell, a chaotic aura that couldn't be resisted and could not be stopped broke out completely. Sandy June was the first to react, and when he noticed the unstable fluctuations, they all shouted anxiously, "Little friend Wushuang, run, he is destroying his luck." Jian Wushuang also noticed Haiyun's thoughts, but he did not leave, but looked at Haiyun calmly, with only disdain in his eyes. "Be buried for me. It's worth it to be able to hold you with me at the last moment." He smiled evilly, and all his aura entered irreversible destruction. Seeing this scene, Jian Wushuang didn't see any panic in his eyes, only the supreme majesty of disdain and overlooking the insects. Even if Haiyun finally fell into discomfort, he was also a quasi-emperor. And the final death of a quasi-emperor before his death is unimaginable. All the immortals and sword immortals present, only the true soul of the three emperors have experienced emperor fall, so they are the most nervous. Even if it was a quasi-emperor, his self-defeating momentum was not something they could bear. As a sword immortal, Jiang Lian also knew the seriousness of this. The next moment they didn't even think about it, they rushed to Jian Wushuang's side and released a powerful enchantment. Each took a D-pin pill. Jiang Lian, who had recovered 90% of the trauma, still stood in front of him. The supreme prestige gradually retreated, and Jian Wushuang's true eyes showed warmth, and then he reached out and used the Emperor's heavenly way to push the two sword immortals behind him. "Wushuang, don't be careless, let's go together," Yan Fan said in a narrow voice, a little urgent. Jian Wushuang nodded when he heard the words, then faced them, releasing all the Emperor's luck in the immortal body and sheltering them. At this moment, the three emperors, Jiang Lian, Diqing and Fuyao Immortal, were all protected. The destruction of the Emperor's self-explanation has completely begun. The broken city of exile, the plane of heaven and earth, instantly turned into nothingness. The endless sea of boundlessness, at this moment, directly collapses hundreds of millions of meters, like an abyss. The shattered void, under the aura of destruction, also collapsed and turned into an ancient pale nihilism. The Emperor Quasi explained his destruction. The energy released was too terrifying, and it covered an innumerable sea area in an instant, and everything was destroyed with it. The void rolled back, and the sea of no edge collapsed. Under this destruction, even the 9th-ranked Dian Immortal could not survive. The destructive aura stretches for hundreds of millions of miles, but Jian Wushuang has one thing to be sure. If this destructive aura is placed outside, it can wipe out millions of heavens and countless stars in an instant. This is really terrifying. The final self-explanation of a quasi-emperor can definitely make a corner of Desiu collapse into Wangu ruins. Jian Wushuang snorted and his complexion turned red for a moment. Then he turned around, turned his back to them, and looked at the void that had turned into nothingness. As he turned around, his 7 orifices poured out a large amount of divine blood at the same time, and even the exposed fairy body cracked. In the end, he underestimated Zhuandi Haiyun's self-understanding, but there was no other way. The Emperor's luck that the Emperor Zhenwu left in his body has been exhausted, and there is no way to support him to make any movements. So he simply turned the last ray of Emperor's gas in his body into a gas barrier, sheltering them. But as part of the Qi luck barrier, nearly 70% of the aura of destruction fell on Jian Wushuang's body. Under the squeeze inside and outside, if it weren't for the protection of Jiutian Yixin, he was almost broken again and died on the spot. The endless aura of destruction still continued, but Jian Wushuang never took a step back, and the divine blood gushing out of his 7 orifices was evaporated before it hit the ground. As a part of the enchantment of Qi luck, he can only support it hard and cannot retreat. Once he retreats, all the people behind him to guard will no longer exist. Jiang Li saw that something was wrong, her eyes showed unbearable, and she wanted to come forward and resist together. But Yan Fan immediately held her down and shook his head slightly. Jian Wushuang was in front of him for a moment, and he was the emperor for a moment. Even the Nineth rank Dayan immortal would never touch his fingers. And at this moment, even if his fairy body is shattered, he is still an unquestionable emperor. In the realm of Yenxian, shoulder to shoulder with emperor. The clothes were broken, the bones and blood of the immortal body turned into nothingness, and even the last emperor's luck had left him. Everything eventually fell silent as the aura of destruction slowly dissipated. Chapter 4994. Jiang Li couldn't help it anymore and rushed forward directly. Yan Fan did not stop him anymore, and went forward together. Diqing, the three emperors stretched out their hands together, supporting Jian Wushuang that fell from the sky. Except for the chest protected by Jiu Tianyixian, his whole body was almost a skeleton, already angered. But when they saw this, they all breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Jian Wushuang had a sigh of relief, he would definitely wake up. Di Qing took one out of his arms at the right time, and the emperor pin pill that had been left behind was stuffed into his mouth. The pill enters the throat and turns into a clear spring, flowing to the limbs and 100 skeletons. Every clear spring is quickly repairing broken meridians, and repairing any damage completely. Seeing this scene of great good fortune, the San Dijuan and the others who held Jian Wushuang's immortal body all breathed their breath. As the Emperor's Six Crow Emperor's collection, the Emperor Pills had reached a quite terrifying point. Even if Jiang Lian returned to such an existence, as long as he swallowed half of it, he could instantly stick to his source, let alone Jian Wushuang. Within dozens of breaths of time, Jian Wushuang's broken immortal body was completely repaired and recovered. However, he did not wake up from his deep sleep. Diqing frowned. This is the first time I have encountered this situation. You must know that Jian Wushuang's recovery ability has reached an unthinkable level, almost capable of jumping alive when he is dying. But this time, his fairy body recovered completely, but he did not wake up. Diqing was flustered, and wanted to reach out to explore his condition, but the three emperors took a step ahead of him, and all released the gentle and moist Dihui enveloped Jian Wushuang's body. The previous kind of luck is not something he can bear. Even if the 9th rank Dayan immortal wants to bear it, it will only end in a body explosion. Dao Gong said slowly, I don't know where Wushuang Xiaoyu borrowed that fortune, and I don't know what method he used to bear it, but the final consequences have just begun. Once he can't bear the kind of emptiness in the divine mind, what is waiting for him will only fall completely. As soon as these words came out, they all gasped. Yang Jun heard this and hurriedly said angrily, Dao Gong, you must pretend to fart. Wushuang boy is absolutely fine, he is just too tired and needs rest. Dao Gong just sighed slightly, but did not bicker. Seeing him like this, Yang Jun Su's heart sank completely, and they knew that Dao Gong was right. It is simply unimaginable absurdity to absorb the Emperor's luck with the body of evolving immortals. Even if Jian Wushuang was able to cross the border to kill Dayan immortal, the immortal body was unbelievably powerful, but if he wanted to absorb the Emperor's fortune and turn it into his own use, that would be impossible. But all this actually happened. Jian Wushuang perfectly absorbed the Emperor's luck given to him by Emperor Zhenwu, and successfully overwhelmed Zhuandi Heiyun. However, as Tao Gong said, the consequences have just begun. With the protection of Di Hui, the sword is calm, and there is no trace of pain. Di Qing's complexion was solemn, and immediately he seemed to have thought of something, and hurriedly took out a palm-sized weird fruit from his arms. This can make Wushuang advance to Dayan Immortal's Qi Luck Dao fruit, eat it for him. Can you carry it? Seeing Dao Gua in his hand, Yan Fan subconsciously said the name. Hun Yuan has no Haigua? Di Qing was startled slightly, and then looked at the three emperors with hope. But then Yan Fan shook his head. This Hun Yuan Waheguo is useless for Wushuang. He had eaten one before, but he can't tell, but I am afraid it is really useless at this critical juncture. Daogong also spoke at this moment. I am afraid that all external forces will have no effect. Wushuang will only be able to wake up if he has survived the divine consciousness level. Diqing heard the words, and my heart sank. Shen Yan is so mysterious, it's hard to figure out, and naturally, external forces can't provide any help. You know, even the 9th-ranked Dayan Immortal will be troubled by divine minds from time to time. All of them present were already suspecting that Jian Wushuang's spirit was weak. But their conjecture was just wrong. As early as the Divine Power Universe, Jian Wushuang's divine mind had already reached a perfect state. Even when facing the Six-Crow Emperor, he had not suffered any damage when he left the Six-Crow Emperor when in his mind. Just when they were thinking, Jian Wushuang, who had been in a drowsy state, quietly opened his eyes. Xianjun Fuyao was the first to notice, and said in amazement, "Wake up, he wakes up." 3 emperors and Jiang Lian were overjoyed when they saw this. Jian Wushuang really woke up. How long have you slept? Jian Wushuang directly sat up, stretched out a long waist, and suddenly knuckles. It's been less than half a day, little friend Wushuang, your recovery speed is too terrible. Daogong said in astonishment. Yang Jun, who was on the side, blew his beard and stared. I know that this old guy will not put any good farts when he opens his mouth. Little friend Wushuang, remember, don't save this guy in the future. Rabble nonsense, why don't I fart well? I used to say according to the worst plan. Don't you understand? Little friend Wushuang couldn't resist the trauma of being replaced by rank 9 Dayan Immortal. Listening to these 3 emperors' true souls confronting like living treasures, Jian Wushuang stood up, dumbfounded. Seeing Jiang Li and Yan Fan who looked at him with the same enthusiastic eyes, he responded with a smile. Yan Fan looked up and down Jian Wushuang carefully, and finally patted him on the shoulder. Good boy. Jiang Li returned to his previous heroic spirit and unsmiling, but his eyes were much warmer. Finally Jian Wushuang and Diqing smiled at each other. Diqing raised his eyebrows slightly, and then raised the one in his hand, Hunyuan no Haigua, which exudes a strong sense of luck, shook it. It seems that the fairy giant tree was beaten by you, to be honest. Jian Wushuang smiled. He also laughed. It seems that the tree really sued you. I learned something about you from the fairy tree, and then I came. Diqing walked to Jian Wufang and said sincerely, Thank you, I have nothing to report. Before he finished speaking, Jian Wushuang directly grabbed his shoulders and laughed loudly. Don't say this, it's already over. Diqing smiled knowingly, and reached out and handed Hunyuan Waheguo to him. Find time to eat it. This is likely to be an opportunity to break through Dayan. I know, after leaving here, I'm absorbing. Watching this scene, Yang Jun stretched out. Finally I am free, my old bone can't stand the tossing anymore. Suhi laughed. Daogong really made you right, this old fellow Yang Jun is indeed the weakest of the 3 of us. Don't talk nonsense. When the emperor was still in heaven, who of you dare? Chapter 4995. The black cloud of Xuandi died of self-dissolution, centering on the plane of heaven and land where he was. The aura of destruction swept through and spread in unknown directions. The void sky firmament has completely become the nothingness of silence, so pale that it cannot perceive the birth of any power. But the same collapsed sea of no edge has completely recovered as before, leaving no traces. Under the destruction of such a quasi-emperor's air transport, I don't know how much sea area will be affected, but Jian Wushuang initially guessed the location of the sea area affected will be vast beyond imagination. I don't know how many Dayan immortals will die in this impact. These are not the issues he should consider now. Now that Diqing has found it, it is time to end this treacherous journey to the borderless sea. But Jian Wushuang still had a headache. One is how to leave, and the other is Jinwu Emperor in the ring. He was able to enter the borderless sea at first because of the assistance of the little emperor and the function of the golden jade ring. Jian Wushuang felt that the golden jade ring in his hand should still be able to open the channel of the borderless sea, but he did not know how to open it. But now he is not eager to leave the borderless sea, but is thinking about one thing that concerns whether they can survive. Except for Jian Wushuang himself, No one of them knew that there was still an emperor waiting on them. And that emperor is precisely the most terrifying existence. It was precisely because Jian Wushuang borrowed his power that he was able to see his terrible place. The Emperor Zhenwu sleeping in the heavenly palace on the White Bone Road under the river of blood and blood of 10,000 immortals was the most terrifying existence he had ever seen other than Emperor Wuyang. Moreover, he is most likely in his heyday without any trauma. Precisely because of this, Jian Wushuang was worried about taking him out of the borderless sea, and he might be involved in a turmoil. But these are still trivial matters. What he is really worried about is that Emperor Zhenwu suddenly rises up and slaughters them clean. In the face of the emperor, even if it is as strong as Jiang Lian's return, he can only wait for death. This risk is really a bit big. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang had already thought in another direction, but immediately stopped, cold sweat oozing from his back. He remembered that Emperor Zhenwu could see through Yangxian's thoughts and thoughts. Once he was aware of a crooked mind, he would probably be broken his neck before he got out of the borderless sea. Converging his mind, Jian Wushuang was about to leave here. The three emperors re-entered the Boyang vase, surrounded by the two strongest sword immortals Jiang Lian and the terrifying Diqing, as well as the sixth-ranked Dian immortal Fuyao. This kind of background is enough to hit any plane in the borderless sea. After all, an existence like Zundi's level was basically impossible for the next journey. When Jian Wushuang and the others left, the eternal nihilism was completely silent. This place is full of chaos, unknown and barren. Even if the rank 6 Dian immortal inadvertently breaks into this place, he will definitely be lost in it. I don't know how long it took. When ripples appeared on the completely silent sea, the two figures set foot here. If Jian Wushuang saw these two figures, he would definitely be shocked, because these two figures were not others, but the old acquaintances from the last heaven and land plane, Bian Ziyuan and the young emperor. They set foot in this place of eternal emptiness, and the young emperor who was walking in the forefront stretched out his hand to release a kind of mysterious and gorgeous light, and there was a certain unknown qi luck flowing out. With the flow of this unknown luck, everything seems to be slowly going back. The complexion of the young emperor turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, in the eternal nothingness, the stars finally condensed together, forming a black cloud with no specific shape. I am not dead? You are dead, but I will let you recover. Why do you do this? Because my seat needs you, I can revive you, and naturally there is a way to die. So from the moment you revive, you can only be loyal to me. And as a reward, I can promise you that the Yanxian you want to kill will eventually kneel at your feet. As he continued to move forward, Jian Wushuang became more and more frightened, and the place where the eternal dying emptiness affected was far wider than he had imagined. At the speed that they swept with all their strength, they hadn't even left the chaotic sea. You know, they are enough to pass through a heavenly plane in a few breaths, and what they see right now is still the chaotic and void sea. This shows how terrifying the Emperor Zhuan's self-defeating air luck is. When the pale nirvana of the void sky was replaced by the dim sky, they were completely out of reach. Since Di Qing had found it, there was no point in staying in this boundless sea, but Jian Wushuang did not dare to imagine what happened after he left. He was afraid that as soon as the passage was opened, the Emperor Zhenwu hiding in the ring would rise up and kill them all. After all, in the previous period, Emperor Zenwu's undisguised murderous gaze still made Jian Wushuang's memory fresh. Now, as long as he can linger, he is ready to come up with a complete method before planning to go out. At this moment, Yan Fan on the side also began to ask, Wushuang, now your friend has been found, how are you going to go out? This is a difficult problem, but Jian Wushuang had to answer again. He quickly said, I found the entrance location from memory. Once I find it, it's time to go out. Really? Can you still remember the original entrance location? Yan Fan was a little surprised. What else did he want to ask more? Jiang Li slapped his head and calmed down. Don't ask so much if you shouldn't. Jian Wushuang breathed a sigh of relief secretly. He was not sure whether Emperor Zhenwu hidden in the ring could hear their conversation, so he could only try not to reveal any news. It was Jian Wushuang's rhetoric to find the original entrance location. As early as when he entered the borderless sea, the passage had been completely closed, and there was no possibility of opening it again. Even if the passage is opened again, there is absolutely no chance that he will find it back. In this borderless sea with almost no signs, returning to the original position is tantamount to a dream. What he can do now is to move on and find a way that Emperor Zhenwu will not kill them. While Jian Wushuang thought about this question, he kept moving forward with them. This borderless sea is infinite, so there is no need to worry about reaching the end. Because there is no end at all. Chapter 4996. And in this last time, he had to think of a surefire way to save his life. As long as Emperor Zhenwu doesn't do anything to him, this journey is over. As for he can't leave for the time being, as long as he is in this borderless sea for a moment, that moment is safe. During this time, he was also thinking about one thing. This is how the 9 heavens immortal monarch Chang Duoling escaped from the Sea of No Edge. This is his puzzle. You know, there are even quasi-emperors, emperors and other terrible existences in this borderless sea, and the lowest level is Dian Immortal in the initial realm. And when Chang Duoling was exiled in the borderless sea, he was only the Dian Immortal in the initial realm. Under this extremely harsh environment, how did he survive and escape? Does he know something? Or did he find the crack in the Sea of No Edge? Jian Wushuang thought to himself. But Chang Duoling was already dead, and naturally there was no answer to everything, but when Jian Wushuang was certain that there would be cracks in this borderless sea, cracks that could go from here to the outside world. If you can find this kind of crack, maybe you can save yourself from finding other ways to get out of here. After all, if there was no help from Xiaodigen and only the golden jade ring, Jian Wushuang would still be a little worried about not opening the channel. Leaving the sea area destroyed by Xuandi Black Cloud, Jian Wushuang brought Jiang Lian back. Diqing and Fuyao Xianjun continued to move forward, not knowing when to stop. I said, shouldn't you leave? Along the way, he was tightly held by the handsome Fuyao Xianjun. Diqing was already full of black lines, and wanted to have attacks several times, but thought that she was here for help, so she had to bear it. But to the back, looking at the uncontrollable fieriness, Xianjun Fuyao, who seemed to be ready to merge his blood at any time, felt cold in the bottom of Diqing's heart, and said this sentence without being able to take care of him anymore. Are you going to drive me away? Xianjun Fuyao recovered from the heat, only loss was left in his eyes. Diqing was speechless, knowing that he had said something wrong, and had to hesitate. No, what I want to say is, maybe you can go back and see if there is anything wrong with your Tianlu. Hearing these words, Fairy Fuyao smiled. It's okay, they can protect themselves. If they can't protect themselves, it won't help the girl go. Now I'm not going anywhere, just follow you. Diqing died, looking at Jian Wushuang as if asking for help. However, Jian Wushuang gave him a voice that couldn't help but smile. You have been alone for so many years, and it's not impossible to be at ease for a while. Feeling Diqing's faintly resentful gaze, Jian Wushuang continued to look straight and flew forward. Girl, please respect yourself. Don't call me a girl. You can just tell me Fuyao. The edge of the sea is still at a loss. If the Dian Immortal who is exiled here does not find a place to rest, he will eventually get lost in the sea and become the nourishment of the endless sea. And Jian Wushuang also began to understand that all the heavens and the land of the Sea of No Edge were built from the corpses of Yanxian. And he guessed that in the Wanggu era, when Zhenwiang became the emperor, he definitely not only exiled Dianxian here, but Yanxian also occupied a part. But to this day, why didn't I see Yanxian in the endless sea? The answer is somewhat clear. Those heaven and land planes for Dian Immortal's rest were laid out from Yanxian's bones. As for the Dcu, which encompassed countless universes, the reason why Dianxian was so scarcely scarce that it had nothing to do with Zhenwiang. Because Dian Immortal had already been exiled by him in the Sea of No Bounds. Although there are only a few words, the tragic and meaning in it is absolutely unforgettable. The Dian Immortal, who has survived in the Sea of Edgeless until now, has also declined to a certain level in strength, and is no longer the original immortal appearance. They are living in a wrong era, and the endless lifespan has become a real prison for them. After this journey, Jian Wushuang has a new understanding of Zhen Wuyang, and being able to exile so many dying immortals here is enough to prove his terrifying in the ancient age. And he finally knew the meaning of what Six Crow Emperor said before his complete death. Zhen Wuyang is terrible. If he is the opponent, even the emperor will have to pay the consequences of the emperor's luck. After sighing in his heart, Jian Wushuang moved on. There are 3 rank 9 dying immortals, among them 2 sword immortals and sword companions as their guards. No one on the heavenly land plane in this borderless sea can hardly have an enemy. The sea was silent, but as they continued to advance, Jian Wushuang and the others became vigilant. Because he found that there was a breath of breath that couldn't be ignored. This is really weird, because in this borderless sea, there is absolutely no possibility of this kind of breath-breeding luck. But the scene that appeared next just happened to explain their confusion. In front of the boundless silence, a real plane of heaven and land unfolded in front of them. This Tianlu was so huge that Jian Wushuang could intuitively know that the Tianlu plane at the moment was larger than he had seen before. Even the heaven and land plane where the Zhuan Emperor Black Cloud is located can never be compared with it. The heaven and land plane controlled by Emperor Fuyao is even more insignificant in front of him. This is a plane of heaven and land that almost spans 10 directions of heaven and earth. It is boundless, and it is impossible to see the scene in heaven and land from the outside. Because there is a grand barrier that is enough to contain the entire heaven and land plane. And the breath-breathing luck that Jian Wushuang had noticed earlier was emitted from that layer of enchantment. Looking at the super heaven and land plane in front of him, Jian Wushuang hesitated a little. He suspected that he could control this super heaven and land. Might be another quasi-emperor. Jiang Lian returned, as well as Emperor Qing's expression a little dignified. They have not fully recovered from the previous battle. If they meet another quasi-emperor, they will be really powerless. Leave a detour, lest something happens again. Finally Jian Wushuang made up his mind and said. They nodded. After all, in this kind of naughty eyes, it would not be a wise move to enter it hastily. Although this super sky land is vast, it is not insurmountable, and it can be passed in less than 100 breaths of time. But it is this time of 110 breaths that is the real danger. Jian Wushuang held his breath and concentrated, bringing Jiang Lian back. Diqing and Fuyao Xianjun quickly passed through this super heaven and land and headed for the boundless front. But at the same time they set off, they suddenly changed. Chapter 4997. The hazy life barrier that enveloped the entire super heaven and land, at this moment suddenly exploded hundreds of millions of huge flowers, like a beam of light, blasting at them. Jian Wushuang had predicted that he wouldn't be so calm, so he was ready to do it now. But Yen returned a step faster than him. The real sword on his waist was unsheathed instantly, and then returned. The whole process didn't even take a breath. Rumble. Then the hundreds of millions of huge beams of light were all cut off in the middle and shattered. That majestic trend didn't even affect them, and it was completely wiped out. Jian Wushuang's eyes were solemn. He knew this was just the beginning. Next, just as he had imagined, as the hundreds of millions of beams of light shattered, the breath-bearing barrier began to fluctuate. Then one body after another, like a streamer, flew out from under this barrier, no more than 10 body shapes, but not all realms are too high, all of them are Qinjiishui's initial realm, the Great Emperor. This made Jian Wushuang's eyes slightly lifted, and he felt that the master of the land plane seemed to be testing them this day. Sure enough, next, the front of the 10 figures, facing some quite mature Dayan immortals, stepped forward and said, "What do you guys do? Have a covetous heart for my Tianlu?" Jian Wushuang immediately said, "It's not the case, we are just on the road, passing by here, and don't want to be disturbed." "Hurry up, where to go, what is your purpose?" The old man Dayan asked immediately. He said quietly, "These don't seem to have anything to do with you. We are just rushing to disturb you, please let us go." "Oh, since it has nothing to do with us, then we don't have to ask too much," said the old-fashioned Dayan Xian, "but you have to pay for the passage." "Death!" Diqing yelled, already unable to bear their provocation. However, He was stopped by Jian Wushuang at random. He said calmly, "I was a little anxious on the way. I don't have those vulgar things on my body. I think even if there are, Gishenlu will not collect those things. Some words are not leaking so they can't find fault." But Lao Chengdian continued, "If you say there is no, then there is no? Dare to let us search?" Jian Wushuang was almost amused by them. These Dian immortals' horrified expressions were almost out of words, but he still bite the bullet to find a hammer. This is something that a guy with no brains can do. You know, Jian Wushuang and the others have just gone through a battle of life and death, and every breath has not been deliberately hidden. Not to mention Jian Wushuang, just Jiang Lian, and the three of Diqing, they are all 9-turn Dian immortals who have grown up from the Wangu era to the present day, and these Dian immortals can be crucified with almost a spit. Terrible existence. Even Xianjun Fuyao with the weakest strength was a real rank 6 Dian immortal, and it was not what they could contend with. But these Dian immortals still provoked. The only possibility was that the people behind them instructed them to do so, forcing Jian Wushuang to take the lead. But Jian Wushuang finally endured it and smiled faintly, "I let you search, do you dare to search?" As soon as the statement came out, the 10 Dian immortals looked at each other, and no one dared to say anything. Especially the old adult De Yenxian headed, his calves started to feel a little weak. Terrible, it's too terrible. The Dian immortals who can survive in the sea of no edge to this day are all intelligent and extremely clever existences. How could they not be aware of the terrible aura on their uninvited guests? Each of these seemingly calm figures, the kind of Yuan Yu Ji breath that exudes from his body, was oppressive. He almost couldn't breathe. Especially that Xiao Zhao Yangxian with a calm face and a faint smile. His breath is even more powerful, like a mountain entangled. The big sun and the stars are crawling under his feet. This kind of breath is unheard of and cannot be looked at directly. A wisp of cold sweat shed from the temples of the old man Dian immortal. He could already be sure that if he uttered a provocative statement he would definitely be dead and even scum left. "You go back, I don't make it difficult for you." Jian Wushuang opened his mouth to make a relief and let them leave. Lao Chengdian sighed in relief, but in the end he bit his head and said, "Or, are you trying to beat me and wait?" At this moment, Jiang Lian looked weird, and the corners of Di Qing's eyes twitched. Facing this bizarre question, Jian Wushuang finally couldn't hold back and laughed. "Why, say the reason, I'm considering whether to teach you a lesson." Old Chengdian also realized that he was an idiot. His face flushed, and finally said, "Forget it, you should leave now, I'm afraid you will ruin this place." Jian Wushuang heard the words without asking too much, and after nodding his head, he was ready to leave. But at this time, the hazy life barrier waved again. A total of nearly 100 figures suddenly swept out, like a black cloud, blocking their way. Jian was double-sided color condensed, only to realize that there were so many Dian immortals waiting under the barrier. If they had just started, they would have already been surrounded. Looking at Dian immortal, who was like a cloud in front of him, he was not worried, but was a little confused about what the person behind this was going to do. "Everyone, if you are not too eager to hurry, please come and sit for a while on the 3/5 heaven. There are things that I want to talk about." At the forefront of these hundreds of Dian immortals was an old man who was very old and said with a faint smile. But Jian Wushuang was not moved, but he was thinking quickly in his heart. In the words of the old man, revealed 2 pieces of news. The first piece of news is that this super heavenly land is called Sanwuzhongshan, which is a bit confusing. The second piece of news is that the owner of this super Tianlu is a fairy. The so-called Xianjun is actually a title handed down from the Wangu era. All Dian immortals under the quasi-emperor can be called Xianjun, which is an elegant title, but it also has some respect for strength. Although the term Xianjun has rarely been called Dianxian in the outside world, it is still widely used in this borderless sea. And this old man claims that the master behind these 3 or 5 heavens is the fairy monarch. Then it shows that the strength of the people behind this has not reached the quasi-emperor. This undoubtedly released a friendly message, and Jian Wushuang's heart also settled down. The senile old man seemed to have noticed that he had let go of his guard a little bit, and he smiled and invited, "Please go to the 3 or 5 heavens and give a brief description." With your strength, let us leave and stay. It is impossible to control. Chapter 4998. After a moment of contemplation, Jian Wushuang looked at the old man and said, "There is no intersection between us. I think there is nothing too easy to talk about." No, what this fairy king said is true rejection. If it is something that is not good for you, I will definitely not block your way. It is an extremely important thing, and it is beneficial to you. The old man speaks very calmly and never reveals any important information. But Jian Wushuang didn't know what to plan for a while, and looked at Jiang Lian's return and cleared them up. Promise him and see what is going on. Yan Fan said in a low voice with a mysterious expression on his face. Jiang Li and Di Qing didn't make much sense either, and nodded in agreement. Will it be too dangerous? Fu Yao Xianjun said with some worry. Di Qing opened his mouth and finally said, "Speak carefully." Finally, after thinking about it for a while, Jian Wushuang agreed to the old man's request. The old man nodded and smiled, then waved his hand to open the barrier. The vast vitality barrier opened heavily, revealing the heaven and land scene within it. Along with the opening of the enchantment, a strong to the extreme spirit breath rose up, nourishing all Dayan immortals. Everyone, come with me. Stepping into this super heavenly land full of vitality, the breath enchantment closed again. The feet are not gray-white fairy bones, but leg-high fairy grasses. They are rhythmically moving, and endless spirits are emitted from them. This is a paradise, of course, for the cruel environment of the borderless sea. Jian Wushuang looked around. There were only endless emerald green grass and no other buildings. After entering the enchantment, all Dayan immortals consciously avoided. Only the aging old man and Jian Wushuang walked side by side. And he didn't ask much, just moved forward leisurely. In the end, the old man took the lead to speak. "Xianjun, here is the third heaven, the outermost part of the entire third and fifth heaven, and the inner part is the fifth heaven." "Oh, under this barrier, there is still a plane hidden?" Jian Wushuang looked forward and said. The old man smiled faintly. Xianjun did not think wrong. The fifth heaven is actually located on the third heaven. His voice fell, and he directly reached out to the void in front of him. In an instant, the void fluctuated like a water curtain, and then it seemed to fade, and the previous scene began to disappear. The vine-green grassland disappeared, and replaced by a heavenly temple sitting in the void. The big sun and the stars circulated above the temple on that day, and the Dayan immortal patrolled and practiced on the vast square, like a real hidden heaven. Looking at the mysterious scene in this crack, the old man nodded slightly. "Xianjun, there is the fifth heaven in this, and it is also the place where the fairy king lives." Jian Wushuang came back to his senses, and looked at the old man with some meaning. Being able to show this real secret realm to some outsiders who they met for the first time shows that the people behind them have absolute confidence in their own strength, and secondly, they have issued a friendly and sincere attitude. For a while, even Jian Wushuang was a little curious about what the people behind this would think. The old man smiled and led them from the triple sky to the fifth day. The structure of these three fifth heavens is extremely delicate and mysterious. They are two different spaces, but they are unimaginably superimposed together. If an external force breaks in, even if the third heaven is completely destroyed, they will never find the shadow of the fifth heaven, because they can't perceive the fifth heaven, but in fact the fifth heaven is right in front of them. The triple heaven is an appearance, and the fifth genius is what really matters. This kind of mysterious heaven and land plane is enough to deal with any impact. Stepping into the five-layer day, looking at the magnificent sun and stars above his head, Jian Wushuang began to reconsider the true strength of the people behind it. Stepping up the jade steps of the ladder, Jian Wushuang, Jiang Lian, Di Qing and Fuyao Immortal King all came to this magnificent temple. The heavenly gate of the Temple of Heaven was open, and the mist came out of it. Immediately afterwards, a little Taoist boy with red lips and white teeth, holding a double hair bun, walked out of the temple and said with a smile, "Everyone, please come in, my fairy has been waiting for a long time." The old man arched his hand and his body slowly disappeared in place. Looking at the open sky gate, Jian Wushuang stepped into it without any hesitation. Clouds and smoke curled, and the bright Tianhe circulated on the dome of the Temple of Heaven, which was so beautiful. The whole temple is filled with immortal jade, continuously emitting a breath of life. As soon as he stepped into the temple, Jian Wushuang's eyes locked on the only figure standing in the middle of the temple. It was a woman, dressed in Feiyun uniform, neat. She has long eyebrows in her temples. She is neither charming nor heroic, she only gives people a very gentle temperament, and she can never give rise to dangerous and vigilant thoughts. Seeing this scene, Jian Wushuang remained silent, and had roughly guessed that this woman was the main messenger of all this. It's really good. Yen returned a subconscious comment. I think you want to die. Jiang Li said lightly, but it was full of murderous intent. Madam, you want to be crooked, I'm talking about her realm. As Yen Fan said, the gentlewoman in Feiyun's uniform is indeed very good at her cultivation level. She did not deliberately hide her cultivation level. The Qi luck belonging to the Nineth rank Dian Immortal flows slowly to support the entire temple. Operation. Seeing the 5 figures in the temple, the gentlewoman walked towards them slowly. The eyes that looked like Qiu Shu's silhouette slowly swept past, but eventually fell on Jian Wushuang, who was not very eye-catching. Then she smiled slightly. I don't remember how many Chinese years I have been since I saw an alien Yenxian last time. I feel pretty good seeing you today. My name is Yu Yao, the creator of these 3 or 5 heavens. After the gentlewoman who called herself Yu Yao finished speaking, Calm looked at Jian Wushuang. She seemed to only want to know his name. Slightly hesitating, he cherished words and said, Misty Pears. Misty? It's really a weird name, I wrote it down. The one-run woman said and then waved, You guys, please sit down. No one left, they all looked at him steadily. Finally Jian Wushuang spoke slowly, I don't know if there is something to stop us. If nothing happens, we will leave. The gentlewoman laughed when she heard the words. Of course there is something to discuss, but if we all stand and say things, it would be too uncomfortable. If this is spread out, saying that Yu Yao doesn't understand the way of hospitality, I want great. So, you guys, please take a seat first, and talk about important matters immediately. Jian Wushuang didn't say much anymore, sitting at a jade case at will. When Jiang Lian returned, Di Qing and the others also took their seats. Their expressions varied, and they seemed to be thinking about something. Chapter 4999. The immortals were seated, and the temple was silent. There are rivers of stars turning on the bright dome, and the beauty is endless. As they took their seats, the gentlewoman named Yao also sat in the top position in the center of the temple. All were seated, the heavenly hall was still empty and silent. Jian Wushuang looked at it carefully. This is almost the entire 5-layer heaven as the foundation, piled up the mysterious heaven. He didn't know what Yu Yao meant by stopping them and inviting them here, but he was able to faintly guess that Yu Yao's purpose seemed not simple. Moreover, the courage of this woman is quite extraordinary, far from being comparable to that of ordinary Dianxian, and she will not be absolute in everything she does, leaving room for maneuver. You know, Jiang Lian and Di Qing did not deliberately hide their aura. Their aura is even more extraordinary than that of the 9th rank Dian Immortal. Facing these 3 terrifying 9th rank Dian Immortals, Yu Yao's face remained unchanged, even as calm as before. In this case, Yu Yao can only have 2 plans. The first one is that she is betting that Jian Wushuang and others are good people. The second type is to rely on something. That kind of reliance is very powerful. Jian Wushuang guessed that the second type might be the greatest. To support such a magnificent super heaven and land, a rank 9 Dian Immortal might be exhausted. It is very possible that there are at least 2 rank 9 Dian Immortals following Yu Yao. In the journey of the borderless sea to this day, the Dian Immortals in the initial realm are endless, and there are not a few in the 3rd stage, but the Dian Fairy in the 6th stage and even the 9th stage is completely scarce, almost rare. It can be seen that even though countless stunned arrogances appeared in that age, rank 6 was the real watershed. Once you have crossed the watershed of rank 6, you are eligible to be honored as a fairy. Seeing them all seated, Yu Yao's gaze slowly scanned again, and finally stopped on Jian Wushuang's body. His gaze revealed a little doubt. She thought it was a little weird. How did a little Yenxian manage to have such a strong and terrifying luck? Even if he sits side by side with the 9th rank Big Yenxian, his luck can be resisted. Weird, too weird. Would he hide the supreme secrets of his realm? It must be so. Yu Yao thought to herself, subconsciously taking Jian Wushuang as the most dangerous existence. Seeing them all seated, she smiled slightly, then stretched out her hand in the air and stroked it, and the space fluctuated in time. Layers of ripples continue to fluctuate in the space, the big sun and stars circulate in it, and the heavenly hall becomes a galaxy. Being in it, I just feel extremely mysterious. Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed slightly. He knew that Dian Immortal would come here again. Just as he thought, with the galaxies surging in the heavenly hall, one body after another came out of the ripples. Seeing this scene, Jiang Lian returned, Di Qing and the others all looked down, and they all noticed the terrible fluctuations in the galaxy. You know, the only thing that can keep them in their hearts is the 9th rank Dian Immortal. Just as Jian Wushuang thought, a total of 6 9-rank Dian Immortals stepped out of the galaxy, and Wuyan general momentum flowed out of their bodies. The 6 9th rank Dian Immortals are all in the time of the British year, and the endless years have not left any traces on their immortal bodies, and even as long as they have a divine mind, they can return to their ignorant years. They all wore Feiyun uniforms, exactly the same as Yu Yao's clothes. Seeing them appear, Jian Wushuang finally knew why Yu Yao dared to stop them, and even dared to expose the hinterland of the 3rd or 5th heaven. Because she is not afraid, there are a total of 7 rank 9 Dian Immortals. This is an unimaginable force, enough to cause a devastating blow to any place in the Sea of Endless. The 6 rank 9 Dian Immortals walked out of the galaxy, and their eyes were naturally locked on Jian Wushuang and others for the first time. Of course, their gaze will only fall on Jiang Lian's body and Di Qing's body. Immediately afterwards, under the guidance of Yu Yao, 6 9th rank Dian Immortals sat in front of the confrontation on the other side of the temple, faintly confronting each other. Jian Wushuang didn't care about it, but if Yu Yao and the others had a little bit of malice, then it was definitely the most tragic destruction. All the powers were seated, and Yu Yao slowly got up, step by step, full of vigorous momentum. She smiled slightly at Jian Wushuang and the others, then looked to the other side and whispered, "I'll introduce." Yu Yao's words were only spoken for half of a while, and she was interrupted by an immortal 9-turned Dian Immortal who was pure face and needless. "You don't need to introduce it." Jiang Lian returned the names of the 2 immortals. "I have already heard about it more than a decade ago." As his voice fell, the other 5 9-ranked Dian Immortals nodded slightly. "Oh, I seem to be superficial." Yu Yao said indifferently, "Respect the ancient fairy, can you tell me?" The 9-turns Dian Immortal, whose name is Respect the Ancients, smiled slightly, looked over Yu Yao in the center, and looked towards Jiang Lian. A dozen or so years ago, before I was promoted to rank 9, these 2 sword immortals had already become famous for a long time, and they moved millions of domains. At that time, it was rumored that as long as an emperor obtains 2 sword immortal monarchs, it will be enough to destroy any heavenly court and establish the highest heavenly court. It is rumored that the 2 of them are also the closest existence to the emperor. I originally thought that they would be able to ascend the emperor's position under heavy pressure, but I never thought that they were also exiled here by Zhen Wuyang. Speaking of this, the ancient fairy ridiculed himself. "It seems that even if I can go out, I won't be able to take revenge in my life." The temple was silent. Jiang Li was unmoved. "You reading www. Akanshu?" Kam Yen Fan scratched his head. His face was a little embarrassed. He never thought that there would be Dian Immortal recognize him here, and said out of the rumors of the year. After Jian Wushuang heard this, he was not too surprised. The sword fairy who could only practice the action of drawing the sword for a year could not be judged by common sense. After listening to this secret story about the ancient fairy monarch, Yu Yao smiled. In this case, it seems that the fairy formation is enough to open up a channel. Zun Gu heard the words, looked at Jiang Lian, then looked at her, If there are two sword immortals as protection, the immortal formation is enough to open, but I am afraid the two sword immortals will not pay attention to me. After Yu Yao heard this, she didn't say much, her expression still warm, and she came to Jian Wushuang and the others. Everyone, Yu Yao wants to invite all of you to work together to open the Galaxy Fairy Array. As soon as this remark came out, Jian Wushuang looked at Jiang Lianfan, Di Qing and the others, and his own spiritual thoughts trembled slightly at this moment. Not only him, but even Jiang Lian felt an uneasy throb in his heart at this moment. Chapter 5000. The Galaxy Immortal Formation is suddenly coming. In the dark, Jian Wushuang clearly perceives that this so-called Galaxy Immortal Formation is absolutely related to leaving the Sea of Endless. Jiang Lian returned, Di Qing and Fu Yao Xianjun did not speak, but all looked at Jian Wushuang. Yu Yao, who had seen this scene in her eyes, was even more surprised and shocked, and then she was even more sure that Jian Wushuang was not simple. After a moment of contemplation, he raised his head and looked at Yu Yao. Tell us what the Star River Immortal Formation is. Of course it will, she nodded without hesitation. Then she turned around and came to the center of the whole temple, facing the starry sky dome above her head. She raised her arms. At the next moment, the whole temple rumbling and trembling, accompanied by the tremor, the starry sky dome began to flow. Just like the roar of Tianhe swept through, the boundless aura of stars, as well as Hongmeng purple intentions are all blooming at this moment. A series of tassel-like Hongmeng purple intentions fell from the Tianhe River, seeming to submerge the entire temple. Accompanied by the endless purple intent, the Tianhe carrying the giant sun and stars roared and surged. Even though the nine-turned Dian Immortal was here, his heart was surging. These forces are too shocking, and even have a faint meaning of detachment. Every fall of the grandiose purple meaning condenses and rises in the temple, and gradually condenses the appearance of a magnificent fairy formation. But these immortal formations only existed for dozens of breaths of time, and they broke and disappeared. Yu Yao, who stood in the eyes of the immortal formation, was extremely pale, and even stood a little unstable. Reluctantly standing upright, Yu Yao looked at Jian Wushuang and the others. Everyone, all that I have shown is the Galaxy Immortal Formation. Once it can be fully opened, it will be time for us to leave the Sea of No Edge. Hearing that the Galaxy Immortal Formation was the great formation that opened the channel, Jiang Lian's hearts trembled slightly in the crowd. Just being able to leave the borderless sea is enough to make their hearts throbbing. But they still had no waves in their faces, just waiting for Jian Wushuang to speak. After a moment of contemplation, Jian Wushuang said, "You, immortal formation, can you really leave the Sea of No Edge?" Yu Yao said, "I can be sure that as long as the blessing is enough, this galaxy array can tear the space of the borderless sea. Have you tried before?" He said slowly, unmoved. Yu Yao slowly shook her head. "No, not once. Since the creation of the Galaxy Immortal Formation, it has only existed in the imagination today, because we only have one chance to tear the Sea of Nowhere. But I can be sure that once it is fully opened, it will inevitably tear the Sea of No Edge. How can I believe you? If this is just your speculation, I am afraid that the consequences will not be able to bear." Jian Wushuang looked at her firmly and said, "Ugh." A heavy voice resounded, and the ancient immortal monarch clashed on the case, his expression a little unkind. When is a little Yenxian qualified to interrupt? The next moment, a snowflake long sword rose up without any warning, and almost instantly hovered in front of Zun Gus's eyes. The point of the sword was only a line away from his true eye. Although there is only one sword, it is like a mountain and sea will be poured, making all the strengths lose their color. A wisp of cold sweat ran down from the temples of the ancients, and he was horrified to find that even though he had reached the level of the 9th rank, he still could not produce any thoughts of resistance in the face of this sword. "Now, are you eligible?" Yen Fan said quietly, with an undisguised killing intent bursting out. Zun Gu didn't dare to speak, and could only support himself to sit on the ground without being frightened. And Jian Wushuang never looked at him from beginning to end, just looked at Yu Yao, You haven't answered my question. Yu Yao came back to her senses, and she began to realize that she was so wrong. Jian Wushuang and the others were never good people to be handled, and even a battle might break out at any time in the future. Putting away her inner thoughts, she gritted her teeth gently and then said, "Yes, this immortal formation is too magnificent. Even if we gather the power of our 7 ranks, it is difficult to build this immortal formation. In fact, this Fang Xianhe immortal formation is built on the basis of 100,000 evolving immortal qi luck. The general qi luck contained in it is beyond our control, and its power can be imagined. And the most important point is the location of the 3 or 5 heavens, the weakest place in the entire borderless sea. We only need to open the galaxy immortal formation and bombard the weakest point, and then we can tear open the endless sea." After Yu Yao finished speaking, she looked at Jian Wushuang and the others nervously. If they didn't agree, then they could only leave. Once they leave, it is almost impossible to gather so many fairy monarchs. At this moment, Jian Wushuang frowned slightly, and Yu Yao's words were extremely credible. He had previously guessed that there must be a weakness in the borderless sea, and blasting the weakness with the power of the immortal array would be quite feasible. If this is really a weak spot, then the gathering of 10 rank 9 great Yangtzeans and the power of 100,000 Yangtzeans luck will surely be able to tear a crack. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang's heart beat faster. If they miss this time, can they leave again? Without the help of the little emperor, if he wanted to use the golden jade ring to open the passage, the feasibility was not even as high as tearing the cracks with the Star River Ferry formation. After a moment of contemplation, Jian Wushuang looked at Jiang Lian and cleared them. "You can give it a try." Yen returned to his ears with a voice that only they could hear. "I have been trapped in this borderless sea for too long. Seize the opportunity to leave." Di Qing didn't say much. Jian Wushuang made up his mind. It was his idea. Next, he raised his head to look at Yu Yao. "Yes, we should go, but there is one thing. Once we discover any concealment, you will never bear the consequences." Yu Yao secretly breathed a sigh of relief, then smiled. "We have been waiting for this day for too long, and we only need to work together once to leave." This simple conversation finally ended with Jian Wushuang agreeing to join. At this moment, all the fairy monarchs are working together to prepare for the opening of the Star River Ferry formation. The galaxy immortal formation based on the luck of 100,000 celestial evolving breath, combined with the power of 7 rank 9 great celestial beings, could not work. Now with Jiang Lian's return, and the 3 9th rank Dian immortals of Diqing joined, it is possible to operate. This galaxy immortal array does not have a mandatory eye, but because of this, its upper limit is even more terrifying. Jian Wushuang can already be sure that once the fairy formation is opened, it will be able to tear the borderless sea and open the passage. Will something happen? Fu Yao Xianjun said with some worry. Chapter 5001. After experiencing this series of battles, she became a lot more cautious and calm. But none of Yanxian present could give her an answer. "When will it start?" Jian Wushuang asked. "At any time. We have been waiting for this day. We have waited for countless years." Yu Yao said. Her smiley eyes were extremely firm. "Are you determined?" The ancient immortal monarch who was threatened by Yan Fanny Jin was extremely unsightly, but he put down his face and asked. Yu Yao nodded and said, "We are 7 plus 3, for a total of 10 rank 9 Dian immortals. We should be able to completely open the fairy formation." "No, not necessarily. I'm afraid that we will not be able to open the fairy formation if we gather the power of 10 of us." Zun Gu Xianjun looked a little solemn. "But in the first stage, I am afraid it is difficult to control." Hearing this, Yu Yao also fell silent. She didn't know that the more Dian immortals joined, the better, but the 10-9 ranked Dian immortals were already at the limit. At this time, Jian Wushuang asked, "There are 2 stages in the immortal formation, what do you mean?" Yu Yao didn't want to conceal it either, she whispered. "Actually, this galaxy immortal array was not created by us, but has been preserved in eternity, but it is already broken. After finding this Fang Xianhe immortal formation, I started to repair it, but its broken origin cannot be repaired anyhow, it can only be replaced by external force and luck. So we call this immortal formation 2 stages. The first stage is the original problem, which is a big problem, and the second stage is to open the problem. To open the problem with the power of our 10 great immortals, it is enough to run the immortal formation, but I am afraid that it will not be able to control the origin of the immortal formation at that time, and it will fall short. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang had clearly understood what she meant. It needs a living 9-rank great Yen immortal who can use his own energy to repair the original problem during the first phase of the fairy formation. After a while, Jian Wushuang said softly, "Leave the first stage questions to me." As soon as the statement came out, Jiang Lian returned and Di Qing directly denied it. How do they not know the meaning of Yu Yao's previous words? Acting as the first stage of the Star River immortal formation, the possibility of falling is almost as high as 99%. Because that is to promote the operation of the fairy formation at the price of Yangxian's luck. Once the fairy formation has problems in the first stage, then the Yanxian acting as the formation I may be drained in an instant. Di Qing's eyes cooled down almost instantly. He stepped out and said coldly, "Are you kidding us? Want us to die?" Yu Yao was silent, and she had nothing to say, because once the galaxy immortal formation had problems in the first stage, then the Yanxian who acted as the formations I would inevitably die. At this time, Zun Gu Xianjun coldly snorted, "Don't forget, some immortals are not even qualified to die. In the first stage, it is impossible to appoint a small Yanxian to act as an eyeball. What is needed is a 9-rank great Yanxian." Di Qing was furious and wanted to do something, but was stopped by Jian Wushuang. Zun Gu Xianjun glanced at Jian Wushuang, and then came to Yu Yao. "I will do the first stage of the formation." As soon as he said this, even Jian Wushuang looked at him in surprise. The impression that Zun Gu Xianjun gave him was not good, and it could even be described as bad, so after he said this decision, it was still unbelievable. Even Yu Yao was a little surprised, and then shook his head. "No, respect ancient fairy monarch, at least 10 ranks of 9 powers are required to open the fairy formation. Once you leave, only 9 are left." The ancient immortal monarch smiled when he heard the words. This galaxy immortal formation does require the luck of about 10 9-ranks Dian immortals to be opened, but it is different now. When he said this, he glanced at Jiang Lian and continued after returning. "If it is an ordinary rank 9, then 10 people are really needed, but with 2 sword immortal monarchs joining, it is enough to replace me. And when I am free, I will be able to act as the first stage." Speaking of this, Zun Gu Xianjun let out a sigh. "That's how it is decided, I will be the first stage of the battle." In the end, it was concluded that all the 9 ranks Dian immortals present were not indecisive. Now that the first stage of the formation has been decided, the opening of the Star River immortal formation will be in a flash. It depends on Yu Yao being in the middle. Under the guidance of her arms, the majestic Tianhe is here again. At this moment, Jiang Lian returned, and the 3 Diqing 9-rank Dian immortals were already standing in the center of the temple. Excluding the respected ancient immortal monarch, the 9 ranks Dian immortals have already formed around. They all unreservedly released their most peak development realm. This is the most shocking scene. The extraordinary powers of all colors are surging to the sky, and the unspeakable general trend finally converges at one point, allowing the entire magnificent fairy formation to come here. Among them, it was only Jiang Lian's return to the 2 sword immortals that he almost contributed more than half of his luck. Then, it was Di Qing, as a man who did not put Chen Weiyang Emperor in his eyes at all. Even if his luck was not as great as Jiang Lian's return, it was almost the same. But the rest of the 9th rank Dian immortal, the ones that were squeezed, were quite out of place. As the despised Jian Wushuang and Fuyao Xianjun, they stood at the outermost periphery of the galaxy immortal array, watching this scene closely. Zun Gu Xianjun stood behind Yu Yao, his eyes firm and decisive. He seemed to have made that decision long ago without any hesitation. Layers of Hongmeng purple meanings descend from the Tianhe, blessing the whole body of each ninth rank Dian immortal, and gradually condensing the appearance of a magnificent immortal formation. Hundreds of millions of stars flow in it, is full of ancient, desolate silence. With the help of Yu Yao at the center, a total of 9 magnificent air transports merged into one, and finally opened the galaxy immortal array. Along with the omnipotence and purple meaning enveloping the wild, the infinite glow seems to protrude from the sky, covering everything in it. Shined by Hongmeng purple meaning and Shiguang, Jian Wushuang felt that his own power was growing at an extremely slow speed. Shenzhen Thai. At this moment, such a huge immortal formation, almost as large as the entire 5-layer heaven and the entire land plane, was finally opened. Combining the power of the luck of the 9 rank 9 great Yangtzeans, the entire galaxy immortal formation, which had been sealed in dust for an unknown number of years, was completely opened. With Yu Yao as the center, the Temple of Heaven was directly fragmented and instantly turned into powder, disappearing. A dazzling, huge beam of light with endless purple meaning rose up into the sky, making the dark sky full of light. Chapter 5002. At this moment, all the Dayan immortals in the 3rd and 5th heavens stopped their cultivation and stood in the void, looking at the huge formation with scorching eyes, and their hearts were surging. The galaxy's celestial formation opened, the chaos was extremely dark and emptied, and the surrounding sky of hundreds of millions of square meters was smudged by the great purple intent, and wisps of purple intent tassels fell down, reflecting everything like a galaxy. Standing at the outermost periphery of the fairy formation, Jian Wushuang watched this scene solemnly, and he was finally convinced that what Yu Yao said was true. Once this gathering of 10 rank 9 great fairy immortals and 100,000 fairy immortals galaxy fairy array opens, this silent sea will inevitably be torn open. In the center of the immortal formation, Yu Yao has great fortune. A total of 9 stages of the 9 revolving great Yangtzean's energy and luck turned into a beam of light, and under her guidance, it completely blasted above the eyes of the galaxy immortal array. OM. Bursts of ancient sounds, resounding through the 8 wilderness. The Star River immortal array, which had been quiet for many years, was completely opened at this moment. The endless Hongmeng purple meanings stopped falling, all hovering in the void, and began to quickly construct a flowing purple dense pattern. When all the grandiose and purple meanings were transformed into purple dense patterns, this galaxy fairy array based on the entire 5-layer heaven was completely constructed. 9 rank 9 Dayan immortals are the most basic formation eyes of the 9 fangs, and their luck caused the galaxy immortal formation to flow. Looking at this magnificent immortal formation, Jian Wushuang keenly noticed that the immortal formation seemed to have only 9 eyes, but in fact there was another one behind Yu Yao, but the eyes were in a hidden state and had not been opened yet. And Zun Gu Xianjun stood above the eyes of the square. "My dear immortals, please release all your luck," Yu Yao said loudly, supporting such a magnificent fairy formation with her own strength, and she could no longer hold on to it. "We, whether we can leave or not, is here in one fell swoop." Jiang Lian and Di Qing looked at each other, and then they all bloomed out of luck. It was just the 3 of them. The strength and luck released by them were all prosperous to the extreme, pushing this galaxy fairy formation to the peak. Excluding Yu Yao, the remaining 5 rank 9 Dayan immortals conveyed their most majestic luck without any hesitation. Rank 9 Dayan immortal is already at its peak, and the luck contained in one of the heavenly planes can never be compared with them. They are the strongest, and they are also terrible existences that can feel the Emperor's luck. So at this moment, when the general weather of the 8 rank 9 Dayan immortals were formed together, the galaxy immortal formations were open. Hundreds of thousands of strands of grandiose purple meaning condensed into purple dense patterns, and the huge and magnificent beam of light completely reflected the entire sky. Zun Gu Xianjun stood above the silent eyes behind Yu Yao, watching this scene nervously. His heart was like beating a drum, and he had waited so long that day, and he was almost desperate for so long. But now there is hope for everything, there must be no mistakes. At this moment, including Jian Wushuang, who was standing at the outermost periphery, was equally dignified and was able to leave the sea of borders, this time. The world has changed, and the luck of the 9 Dayan immortals is too terrifying and magnificent. At this moment, the entire galaxy immortal formation has no suspense open. Like a dust-covered Tianmen, it burst out with hundreds of millions of rays of light. Led by Yu Yao, the 9 ranks of the Nineth rank Great Yangtzean's Qi Luck joined forces to attack the dust-covered heaven above the immortal formation. Between heaven and earth, a heavy buzzing broke out again, and all the Dayan immortals' onlookers were repelled by these fluctuations. Even Jian Wushuang, who deliberately guarded his mind, was surging by the wave of blood. But even with this power, they couldn't break the dust-covered heaven gate above the immortal array. Yu Yao snorted, and a ray of blood overflowed from the corner of her mouth. The ancient Xianjun who sensed this change was shocked. He noticed something was wrong and hurriedly prepared to help. "Respect the ancients, don't move," Yu Yao said in a deep voice, her high arms unleashing endless momentum. When the two collided, the Tianmen erupted with a deep roar, which was no longer as unbreakable as before. Zun Gu Xianjun had to stand back to the eyes of the original formation and continued to watch this scene nervously. This stalemate lasted for a long period of time, and the Galaxy Immortal Array, which gathered 9 ninth-rank Dayan immortals and 100,000 immortals, had become extremely radiant, and Hongmengzi almost formed water mist. Above the sky, the dusty giant gate also began to give birth to fine cracks at this moment. At this moment, even Jian Wushuang was secretly nervous. Once the dusty heavenly gate was broken, the sea of no edge would be completely opened. Zun Gu Xianjun was even more excited, almost going to the center of the formation to add strength. At this point, the Star River Immortal Array successfully operated, and there was no problem with the origin of the first eye. If this situation continues, it is only a matter of time to break through the dusty goalkeeper. The 9 ranks of the Great Yanxian, mainly Jiang Lian and the Diqing 3, provide a steady stream of Qi Yun and blessings, and bless the immortal formation to break through the heavenly gate above the head. The gate of heaven is unstoppable, and there are many cracks. Yu Yao has 8 supreme fortunes in her body, and is almost integrated with the Galaxy Immortal Array, exuding a great power that cannot be directly looked at. But the next moment, the Galaxy Immortal Array that kept gathering energy and luck to hit Tianmen suddenly stopped. The huge pillar of Hongmeng purple light also stopped suddenly, and then dimmed. In the center of the immortal formation, Yu Yao suddenly vomited colorful blood, and her gas flow passed by at an unimaginable speed. This change came so quickly that when all Dayan immortals reacted, they could no longer reverse it. The immortal array shook, all the flowing purple dense patterns began to dim, and the air luck regurgitated, and all flowed into the immortal array. Then, the first eyes that had been dusty quietly opened at this moment. Zun Gu Xianjun stood in the same place. The joy in his eyes has not even subsided, replaced by the surprise and despair of good luck. The most worrying thing finally happened. The broken eyes of the Star River Immortal Array in the first stage, finally unable to withstand such a degree of luck, began to countercurrently repair itself. 9 rank 9 Dayan immortals, all the Qi luck released by them was swallowed by the Galaxy Immortal Array at this moment, flowing continuously into the first eye. Looking at the opened eyes in front of him, Zun Gu Xianjun did not escape on the spot, did not make any overreactions, just stood quietly. After a few breaths, a long sigh sounded, passing through the hearts of all Dayanxian present. Then he laughed, and his face that had always been unsmiling became much warmer at this moment. "My dear Princes Yao, this seat is one step ahead and offers you the last luck." The voice is like a long wind in the past, traveling leisurely into the wilds and then swallowed by the silent sea. Chapter 5003. Respect the ancient immortal monarch, alone, stepping into the battle. The eyes that swallowed all the luck like a vortex were too terrifying. Even if the rank 6 Dayan stepped into it, it would only be the end of the body. Only with 9 turns, with the same force as everything, can it resonate. There is one and only one fate for respecting ancient immortal monarchs, which is the exhaustion of luck, and there is no possibility of survival. At this moment, Jian Wushuang respected him. No, respect the ancients, don't. Yu Yao shouted, eyes full of sorrow, but she couldn't move one step at all. Once she moved one step, the galaxy immortal array would speed up its disintegration. Zun Gu Xianjun laughed, and the moment he stepped into the eyes of the whirlpool, the luck of his whole body irreversibly died. Fian's long suit shattered directly, and the fairy body was quickly old. The role of Zun Gu Xianjun is to block the vortex eye of the immortal array with his own power, and use his own energy to absorb the eye, thereby maintaining the operation of the entire galaxy fairy array. His celestial body was old and shattered in an instant, and then a series of dense patterns of hongmeng showed the appearance of chains, and they were firmly bound in the eyes. Qi luck has been swallowed. Respecting the ancient immortal monarch with eyes full of the meaning of liberation, Ren Chain kept strangling the Qi luck of the immortal Tao, and then he freely released all the Qi luck in the immortal body. A 9th-rank great Yenxian tried his best to release all his Qi luck. It was extremely terrifying. The majestic and surging supreme Qi luck directly blocked the whirlpool's eyes. With the eyes completely blocked, the air luck in the galaxy immortal array was stabilized and reunited. Yao, open the gate of heaven. Zun Gu Xianjun exhausted all his strength and made a sound. Yu Yao was desperate, but she also knew that she could not fall short, so she had to manipulate her fortune and continue to attack Tianmen. The other 9th-rank Dian immortals are all gloomy. They have been getting along for a long time, and the old friends have died, so they will not be sad. Yen Huanhuan spit out a mouthful of turbid breath and nodded slightly when he looked at Zun Gu Xianjun. With the vitality of a 9-rank Dian immortal, the Star River immortal formation is stable again. At this moment, the 9 Hongmeng light beams of the 9th-rank Dian immortal's luck were assembled, and once again hit the dust-covered Tianmen. It seemed that the roar and buzzing from Jiuyou erupted completely. The fully opened Star River immortal array, the Hongmeng beam of light released completely covered the entire sky. Everything is full of unspeakable antiquities. All the Dian immortals outside the formation were invincible to this terrible fluctuation. They were all shocked by 1,000,000 feet. Some people with weaker realms had blood flowed out of their mouths and ears that were shocked on the spot. Those with weak spiritual minds are suffering from such shocks. Even Fu Yao was a little unstable. Jian Wushuang was also a little uncomfortable, but he was not affected too much. After covering Fu Yao with his spiritual thoughts, he looked nervously at the scene ahead. The impact was too violent, and even faintly close to the previous battle with Zhuandi Heiyun. The sky was replaced by the cosmic purple meaning, and the sea of boundlessness rolled up a wave of dust, which was then quickly evaporated. Above the sky, the dust-covered Tianmen was densely covered with cracks, almost reaching the point of being completely broken. Jian Wushuang raised his head and stared, watching nervously. But then he noticed something was wrong. Because he saw that although the Tianmen had been broken to the extreme, there was no sign of destruction at all, and at the edge of the Tianmen, it had begun to slowly repair it. This is a bad sign. Tianmen will slowly repair. Once they are exhausted, then everything will fall short. Undertaking the 8 supreme luck, Yu Yao stormed the Tianmen frantically. And at this moment, the ancient immortal monarch standing in the eyes of the vortex formation finally couldn't hold on. The immortal body was completely shattered, and the luck of the 9th-rank Dian immortal was completely swallowed by the eyes. Respect the ancient fairy king. Die. Along with his death, the Star River immortal array also collapsed. Endless Qi luck no longer impacted the Tianmen, but reversed it and was swallowed and absorbed by the first glance. The immortal formation collapses and everything is about to fall short. At this moment, all Dian immortals present were desperate. They waited for countless years, but the final result was like this. Could it be that it failed? Xianjun Fu Yao whispered softly, only bitterness was left in his eyes. Gathering the power of 10 rank 9 great Yen immortals, they couldn't open the heavenly gate, and everything was settled. Seeing the chaotic luck in the galaxy immortal array, Jian Wushuang knew that he had failed. The next moment, but the sudden change. An immortal Dayan in the initial realm, without any signs, released endless luck and flew into the fairy formation. Then, under the gaze of all Dayan immortals, he solved the immortal source and scattered the atmosphere in the eyes of the vortex. His atmosphere blocked the vortex's eyes for several breaths, and then it was completely swallowed. This scene was seen by all the Dayan immortals present, and only decisiveness remained in their eyes. At the next moment, the second Dayan immortal flew out and plunged into the eyes of the vortex without any hesitation, and sealed the eyes with his own fairy source chi. With the appearance of the second, the third and the fourth Dayan immortal, all flew into the immortal formation. They didn't hesitate to solve the Xianyuan directly by themselves, and sealed their eyes with luck. Although their luck is not as good as that of the 9th-ranked Yenxian, they still have no hesitation, and rushed forward frantically, trying to support the number of breaths. Flying away, it is no different from moths to the fire. This scene is tragic and lonely. No 9th-rank great Yenxian persuaded them to do it, all of which were spontaneously offering the luck of the fairy source. It is precisely because of the unwillingness to do it spontaneously that adds tragic and loneliness. At this moment, even Dayan's life is like an ant. But they are already on top, and they can build the supreme power of heaven with their hands. In the 3rd and 5th heavens, all the Dayan immortals drew themselves into motion. They remained silent, and spontaneously destroyed themselves, only to gain 10 breaths, or even a few breaths. To bury the immortal array with the body, the future is unknown. The 9th-ranked Dayan immortals in the immortal formation can't bear to see this scene again, and they all look away. Yu Yao, who stood in the center of the fairy formation, was already weeping in grief. They were both supremely powerful, but they died like ants. This shocking scene made Jian Wushuang remember deeply in his heart, and he will never forget it ever since. Nearly 1,000 Dayan immortals were buried in the eyes of the immortal formation, just for a moment. They were all in the same era as Zhen Wuyang, and they have survived from that ancient era that has no meaning to time. But they were all imprisoned by Zhen Wuyang and exiled here, and in the end they were unable to end well and died like dust. Only at this moment did Jian Wushuang understand that this silent sea might not be cruel to him, but for the Dayan immortal who was exiled here, it was a truly endless cage. Chapter 5004. Endless Life. So Yenxian and even Dayanxian all seem to be growing in a distorted fairyland, living in sorrow. Jian Wushuang suddenly felt that this even more vast and boundless Dayanhuan was like another boundless sea. Even the great world he walked step by step before, and even the divine power universe, seemed like a sea of no bounds. He walked out step by step, left the shackles, and became so strong that even the emperor's luck began to favor him. But there is still no end and tireless. This endless cage, even rank 9 Dayan immortal seems unable to break. He, who has completely melded his spirit, thought a lot at this moment, since he couldn't even break the 9th rank Dayan immortal. What about the emperor? His eyes were bright, but he suddenly realized something, and subconsciously looked at Yu Yao. Yu Yao, who was in grief and weeping, had no expression on her face at this moment, and she began to control the supreme luck of the 8 Dao 9 ranks Dayan immortal again. But Jiang Lian's return, Di Qing, and the other 5 rank 9 Dayan immortals, all released all their luck. Jian Wushuang was shocked. He couldn't imagine, but he couldn't calm down. Yu Yao's ideas actually fit his final point. No, stop now, don't release your luck anymore. Jian Wushuang shouted with a quake, reminding Jiang Lian to return to them. But they couldn't hear the voices outside the fairy formation at all, completely releasing all their luck. Yu Yao, who was in the center of the fairy formation, seemed to feel something. Looking at Jian Wushuang, only coldness remained in his eyes. Then she retracted her gaze, raised her arms flat, and gathered the luck of the 8 strong 9th rank Dayan immortals, and no longer rang the broken heavenly gate, but was absorbed by her. The first thing that came out was Di Qing, who had noticed something wrong earlier, but it was too late for everything. He wanted to get out, but found that he couldn't take his luck back. At the same time, Jiang Lianfan also noticed the change, and when she saw Yu Yao absorb all of their luck, her expression was hard to see the extreme. They never thought that Yu Yao would devour their luck at this moment, in order to achieve themselves instead of destroying Tianmen. The remaining 5 rank 9 Dian Immortals also noticed changes, and looked at Yu Yao in the center of the immortal formation in disbelief. They also didn't expect Yu Yao to do this. To absorb their luck, to achieve themselves. But it was too late. They couldn't get away at all, and they couldn't even withdraw their luck. You are looking for death. Yan Fan shouted in a deep voice, look at these buried Dian Immortals, they will all become your funeral objects? Yu Yao didn't speak, and the majestic and endless air luck began to crazily flood into his body, and the air luck of the entire galaxy immortal array was used by her. Jian Wushuang could no longer sit back and watch. He directly condensed an invisible sword, flew forward, and slashed down heavily. The invisible sword that overwhelmed the sky tore through the void and slammed heavily on the galaxy immortal array. However, this immortal formation has gathered hundreds of thousands of eternal immortals, as well as the luck of the 9 rank 9 great eternal immortals, which is already at its extreme, and it is not enough for external forces to break through. Even if Jian Wushuang released Wushuang Kendo, he couldn't break through at all. Wushuang go! At this moment, Jiang Lian returned and Di Qing shouted loudly, asking him to leave as soon as possible. But Jian Wushuang would never take a step back, because the most important people to him were all in the immortal formation. Just when he was about to mobilize his own strong sword to counter the galaxy immortal array, an unimaginable trend surged from Yu Yao's body. All Dian Immortals were horrified, including Jiang Lian's return to them. His eyes were dignified to the extreme. At this point, they finally understood why Yu Yao set up this situation. She wants to use 100,000 celestial beings and 9 rank 9 great celestial beings as the guide to achieve her emperor's luck. This is so unimaginable that all Dian Immortals never thought of this level. But things have actually happened. A kind of Hongmeng purple meaning flows slowly from Yu Yao's fairy body. That is the emperor's luck. Jian Wushuang slowly backed away, and he finally understood that Yu Yao's intention was not to tear the borderless sea at all, but to satisfy himself and pursue the highest heaven. At this moment, Yu Yao condensed the emperor's luck. This is too terrifying. Once the emperor has luck, it means that she has completely taken the step of the 9th revolution and reached the quasi-emperor. How terrible the Emperor Zhuan was, Jian Wushuang and the others had already learned in that previous battle. With his own power, Zhuandi Heiyun easily shattered everything, and even defeated Jiang Lian back with his hands. This was too terrifying. If it weren't for Jian Wushuang to borrow Zhenwu Emperor's luck, they would all be destroyed. But right now, Yu Yao had absorbed the power of 100,000 fairy formations and 9 rank 9 great fairy formations with the help of this Star River fairy formation, which made her feel the Emperor's luck. Once the Emperor's luck condenses, she is the quasi-emperor. Once the quasi-emperor is achieved, they will no longer be able to reverse the situation. Yu Yao raised his hands flat, and the endless magnificence and purple spirit began to flow out of his body, and the entire galaxy immortal array also lost its strength and became dim. The endless Hongmengzi was blessed all over her body, and the 8 9th rank Dian Immortals at this moment, except for Jiang Lian's return and Di Qing, all the other 5 immortal sources were broken, and the luck was absorbed. And even if they died, they never said that Yu Yao was wrong. Just when Jiang Lian returned and Di Qing couldn't support it, the galaxy immortal array was quietly broken. Jian Wushuang, who was covered in blood, cut it open a gap, and finally broke the fairy formation. Riding on the fragmentation of the fairy formation, they only felt that the restraints on their bodies suddenly loosened. Almost without even thinking about it, they fled the fairy formation. Where are you going? Quiet and silent, the voice without any emotions quietly resounded through the wilds. Jian Wushuang's figure stiffened slightly, then Jiang Lian returned without any hesitation. Di Qing and Fuyao Xianjun pushed away. The extremely cold aura condensed behind him, and the grand purple meanings lingering in the void, like sharp vines, quietly wrapped him. At this moment, Yu Yao, who had absorbed the power of the entire galaxy immortal formation, appeared behind Jian Wushuang with the Emperor's luck. Her eyes had been replaced by purple meaning, and the whole body of the fairy was burning with magnificent purple flames. The dense lines that oppress the void are flowing slowly, which is the manifestation of the Emperor's luck. The void is shattered, triggering endless visions. The Dian immortals of the third and fifth heavens were dead and clean, and they were all buried in the eyes of the whirlpool, leaving no one behind. Even the entire three-fifth heaven has ceased to exist, replaced by only the endless purple meaning. Yu Yao ascended to the Emperor Zhuan. Chapter 5005. The power provided by the galaxy immortal formation that condensed more than 100,000 fairy gods and 9 nine-turn great yen fairy auras pushed her toward the Emperor. Endless Hongmeng purple meaning is Yu Yao's Emperor luck. Feeling the terrible and monstrous purple arrogance, Jian Wushuang's heart was like a drum. Relying on his intuition, he felt that Yu Yao's aura of luck even faintly surpassed the previous Zhuan Emperor Heiyun. This also means that as long as she wants to do something, Wu Yenxian can survive under her hands. This moment is a moment of great horror between life and death. When Jiang Lian returned, Di Qing had been exhausted in the Star River Immortal Array, and almost no longer had the power to resist. You must know that Qi luck is not equivalent to the ability to regenerate the power. Qi luck is like the source of immortality, which is the foundation of the eternal. Once worn out, it will take a long time to repair it again. Even if Jian Wu had D-pin pills in his hands, it was almost impossible for Jiang Lian and Di Qing to recover in a short time. At this moment, on the huge ruins of the third and fifth heavens, there are only 5 figures of them left. All other Yenxian, even the Nineth-ranked Dianxian, became the victims of Yu Yao's proclaiming emperor. After Yu Yao only glanced at them, she withdrew her gaze, as if not worried about them fleeing. She looked at her palm, which was filled with the magnificent purple meaning, and only joy and infatuation remained in her eyes. So, is this the Emperor's luck? As Yu Yao's voice fell, hundreds of millions of threads of grand and purple meanings emerged from the immortal body, beginning to outline a certain power that could not be seen directly. The Feiyun uniform was replaced by an imperial uniform condensed with the grandiose purple intent. Jian Wushuang's brows jumped fiercely, if it is said that he had a chance that Yu Yao failed to ascend to the Emperor Zhuan. So now, when the imperial clothes were condensed, everything was settled. Yu Yao, the Emperor is no doubt. Do you think you can escape? Dressed in a dark purple Qinya Emperor's clothing, her eyes were cold, as if looking at an ant. We have handed all our luck to you, and you have also got the results you want. Why rush to kill them all? Jian Wushuang stopped them all behind him, and said condensedly, "Is this the result I want?" Yu Yao slowly raised his arms, and the corners of his mouth curled up. "No, the result I want in the end is Emperor Denglin." Jian Wushuang heard the words, suppressed the anger in his heart, and looked at her coldly. Yu Yao was already different from the previous one, and what he did was even worse than that of Zhuandi Heiyun in the City of Exile. She will follow all of her Dian immortals, and even the 9th-ranked Dian immortals, all devise pit kills, just to devour luck and make herself a quasi-emperor. Now, Jian Wushuang no longer counted on them. This quasi-emperor Yu Yao, who had completely wiped out humanity, let them go. Our luck has all belonged to you. Even if you wipe us out, it will be difficult to provide a little luck. Jian Wushuang tried to speak last. Immediately afterwards, Yu Yao's true eyes, which had no emotional fluctuations, swept over them slowly. In the end, his eyes fell on him. Your luck has not yet belonged to me. Jian Wushuang was stunned, and then fixedly looked at her. Well, I will give you all my luck, and you will let them go. Do you think you are qualified to negotiate? Zhuandi Yu Yao smiled contemptuously, but they have no value to me and can leave. Jian Wushuang was relieved when he heard the words. No, you can't stay, Wushuang. Jiang Lian returned, Di Qing said anxiously at the same time. They knew very clearly that in order to have the Emperor's luck, She even did not hesitate to kill all the Dayan immortals under her seat, and once Jian Wushuang stayed, she would only perish completely. Jian Wushuang turned around, blinked at them, and said in a voice that only a few of them could hear, "Don't worry, leave, I have my own way to keep up with you. Don't forget that I still have no cards to play." As soon as these words came out, Jiang Lianfan and Di Qing calmed down. In the previous battle with Heiyun, Jian Wushuang used his own power to carry the emperor's luck and wipe it out abruptly. Although this is too hard to imagine, it actually happened. So seeing Jian Wushuang's confident expression, although they were a little worried, there really was no better way. Their luck was exhausted by the Star River Immortal Formation, and their strength had declined to the extreme. Even if they stayed, it would only drag Jian Wushuang. "Then you must be careful and protect yourself," Di Qing said nervously. Jian Wushuang nodded and watched the four of them leave before turning around. As expected, Yu Yao didn't break his promise. After allowing them to leave, his eyes fell on him. "I'm a little curious, why should I absorb the luck of a little Yanxian?" Jian Wushuang looked at her and asked. Yu Yao looked at him and said expressionlessly, "Because I will not let all the immortals present and leave alive." Jian Wushuang opened his eyes, and a big crisis suddenly surged in his heart. As if to prove what he thought, the next moment, Yu Yao raised his arms suddenly. With her arms raised, the endless magnum and purple meaning quietly covered the entire sky. Every ray of grandiose purple meaning becomes extremely sharp, like an endless rain of arrows venting crazily. Jian Wushuang swallowed his throat as he looked at the rain curtain with unimaginable momentum. His eyebrows were low, and a million sword intent came out directly. Facing the endless purple meaning, he resolutely confronted him alone. At this moment, Wushuang Kendo collided again with Zhuandi Qiun. Wushuang Kendo Xinghuhai, the second style. River. The towering Tianhe descends from the sky, like a mountain, and the sea will pour, roaring and sweeping forward. Jian Wushuang sat on the tide of Jianhe, his eyes narrowed slightly. With this sword, he knew that without suspense, he would lose. In order to fight for Jiang Lian to return and clear the time for them to leave, Jian Wushuang kept all Qi Yun and his power in the immortal body, just to survive. The roaring Tianhe collided with the endless purple meaning. There is no smashing explosion, some only swallow and absorb. The Hongmeng Zi, which broke through all things, easily tore Tianhe and completely swallowed all the sword intent. Facing the emperor, everything is so weak. Even though the 9th-rank Dayan immortal can't face the quasi-emperor, let alone a mere immortal? Sword Tianhe only existed for a few breaths of time before it was all swallowed. Everything was shrouded in purple again. Yu Yao still stood in the same place, her complexion unwavering, wearing the dark purple Qianye emperor's clothes. The purple flames burned more vigorously. Behind her, a fairy body was almost twisted into pieces, barely supporting it before falling to the ground. Colorful divine blood poured out from its fairy body, and the sky that enveloped Hongmeng purple intent was stained with a strange scarlet. Chapter 5006. Jiao Tian Yi Xian, who still exudes the meaning of sky blue, was a bit dim at this moment, but did not suffer any damage. Even his chest was well preserved under the protection of Jiao Tian Yi Xian. But except for the parts protected by Jishunaixuan, the rest of the fairy body was almost shattered into meat. The blood of the gods was drained at this moment. Jian Wushuang felt that the power of his whole body was leaving, but he was still fighting. He tried his best to bite the emperor pin pills hidden in his mouth. In an instant, the brilliance gathered, the dying power that had passed, returned again, and even the immortal body quickly recovered. Turning around slowly, a hint of surprise appeared in Yu Yao's unwavering eyes. A mere immortal Yanxian has actually passed her quasi-emperor's luck? In an instant, the immortal body had recovered 7 or 888. Jian Wushuang turned around and looked at her solemnly. "I guessed right, you really are not an ordinary Yanxian." Yu Yao said meaningfully, "I can't see through the clothing on your body." Jian Wushuang ignored the meaning of her words, but sneered, "You don't let the living Yanxian leave. Do you feel that your behavior is shameless?" Afraid of spreading it out? Spurned by all the Yanxian? Yu Yao's eyes condensed, and her complexion finally fluctuated. You want to die. I'm indeed looking for death, but you are not worthy to kill me. When those thousands of Dayan immortals are obsessed with blocking their eyes, the 9 Nineth-rank Dayan immortals all give out their luck. When you move your thoughts, it's the dirtiest one. Even if you control the luck of the emperor, it's just a clown. At this moment, Jian Wushuang cursed wantonly, disdain to the extreme. As if being pricked in the most painful spot, Yu Yao could no longer calm down, as before, shot directly and fiercely. The meaning of endless humor poured out from her palm, strangling forward. This is the emperor's luck, the real emperor's luck. Seeing Jia Shen's rising trend, Jian Wushuang's eyes showed a touch of bitterness. Without the help of the emperor's luck, it would be impossible to fight the emperor's luck. Even if the emperor's luck is back, it will only be suppressed. But he is still not afraid. At this moment he once again carried the 3 Dao. The way of guarding, the way of killing, Wushuang Kendo is blessed again. The true shadow of selflessness also appeared behind him, his hands clasped together, the true eyes that slowly opened revealed compassion. The endless luck of Ryuan Reprison is completely unfolded, and even has a place under the emperor's luck. Yu Yao was shocked, and the luck released from Jian Wushuang's body was so shocking that she couldn't ignore it. But he is obviously just a fairy. 3 backs, due to their lack of realm, cracks were pulled out on the fairy body. This is already the limit of Jian Wushuang. If it were not for the blessing of the true shadow of Wu Wu, I am afraid that the 3 ways of luck would directly blow him up. The shock in the eyes disappeared, and more coveted. Even though she was already a quasi-emperor, there was still a lot of luck from the real distance. At this moment, Jian Wushuang's luck made her extremely moved. He laughed, with 3 supreme luck, manipulating the huge selfless shadow behind him to brazenly confront the great luck. Yu Yao smiled meaningfully, stretched out his hand a little, and suddenly hundreds of millions of hues of grand and purple meaning condensed into one point, with an unstoppable momentum, hit Jian Wushuang. At this moment, the true shadow of selflessness, over 1 billion feet, presses forward. But what he faced was Yu Yao, Zhundi. The offensive of the true shadow of selflessness could not even fall at all, and was directly killed by that little coquettish grandeur and purple intent, into countless fragments. After that, it castrates unabated and points towards Jian Wushuang's chest. All this happened so fast that he didn't even react at all and was passed through. A kind of pain from the depths of the soul, so that he could not support for a moment, he knelt and sat in the void. In the position of his heart, Jiutian Yixian's only crack came out, swaying with a hint of purple. The Hongmengzi was like a tarsal maggot, completely burning in the fairy body. This kind of burning is enough to burn even the divine mind. And this was the moment when Jian Wushuang truly faced his complete death. The immortal Bodhi's unique nature against the sky, even if the immortal body is completely broken, it is enough to resurrect. But this is under the premise of keeping one point of divine will. If all his spiritual thoughts are destroyed, Jian Wushuang will never be resurrected. But right now, his divine mind was burning. Yu Yao saw the fatal crack on his 9 heavens Yixuan, and manipulated the Hongmengzi to penetrate through the body and swallow it from the inside. Jian Wushuang knelt and sat in the void. The fairy body showed a strange dark purple, and every meridian was burning and then turned into ashes. Yu Yao also quietly came in front of him, and then squeezed away from a distance, lifting his entire figure. "You are very good, I can't see through you anymore," she said softly. In addition to coveting, there were some elusive colors in her eyes. Jian Wushuang was already unable to speak. Ziyan was madly burning the fairy body, meridians, and spirit. The real extinction is inevitable. Only when you truly die, my luck and divine consciousness can truly blend and take that step better. This is why I want to kill you all. Yu Yao's voice has a heavy prestige. In addition, I will make good use of your luck. Ziyan had already burned Jian Wushuang's eyes to ashes, and the fairy body quickly wilted. Once the divine consciousness fades, he will never be able to resurrect. Yu Yao didn't say any more, and between one breath and one breath, all the 3 qi luck on Jian Wushuang's body surged out. The pure gold of the way of guarding, the scarlet of the way of killing, the invisible of Wushuang Kendo, the 3 great fortunes are deprived, and there is no mainstream flowing in the void. Looking at the surging luck in front of me, Yu Yao couldn't help it. She spoke slightly, and 3 great luck was swallowed into her abdomen. These 3 air lucks, even if they were the 3 9th-rank great Yangtzeans, could not condense such a mighty air luck. Because these 3 air transports have gone beyond the category of cultivating immortals and reached a certain unknown realm, but now was swallowed by Yu Yao. In an instant, the purple inflammation on her body became more vigorous, and the lines on the emperor's clothes became more vivid, and it seemed that she might wake up at any time. Without the blessing of Qi Yun, Jian Wushuang, whose spirit was burned out, was silent, and the fairy body was shattered to the extreme. Yu Yao was very satisfied with the 3 supreme luck. Seeing the immortal body that no longer had any breath in her hand, she did not destroy it again, but gently held it up with a beam of strength and placed it in the void at will. The Hongmeng purple spirit quietly circulated, completely covering Jian Wushuang's fairy body. Chapter 5007. The passage of the 3 supreme auras means that the Tao that belongs to him is dead. As soon as Tao is dead, God naturally disappears. This is also the reason why Yu Yao didn't crush his fairy body one step further. At this moment, Jian Wushuang is dead, and she has more important things to do, to capture all the 4 Dayan immortals who fled, and kill one without leaving. What she didn't notice when Yu Yao left was that the dead immortal body lying quietly in the void, his chest actually fluctuated at this moment. Damn little guy, what harm have you caused, knowing that if you don't have the help of the emperor, you will be completely gone. The stress of uncontrollable anger resounded in his ears, causing Jian Wushuang, who was in a dead state, to wake up abruptly. He suddenly sat upright, gasping for breath, and at the same time, the pain from the depths of the soul and mind made him groan in pain. This can actually survive. Isn't all my spiritual thoughts already burned? Jian Wushuang muttered to himself in disbelief, and at the same time he looked forward subconsciously. At this moment he was sitting on the endless red desert. And on this red desert, less than a few feet away from him, a huge wing-chasing bird that looked like flowing clouds was staring at him. With eyes facing each other, Jian Wushuang subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva, then propped his arms in the gravel, moving his and couldn't help back. This bird chasing is too huge, and also too weird and mysterious. It has a hexagonal head, and each corner is a different color, magnificent and mysterious. It seems to be shrouded in clouds, not real. The huge eye wheel is red gold, as if there are thousands of days hidden in it, which makes it impossible to look directly at it. Maybe others don't know what this huge and terrible chasing bird is, but Jian Wushuang is clear about it. Only Emperor Lu Crow is able to possess such a vision and monopolize a divine mind in his body. Strictly speaking, this bird chasing is not the 6 Crow Emperor, because the last ray of the 6 Crow Emperor's thoughts has dissipated. This bird chasing is actually a concretization of the Emperor's spiritual thought in the 6 Crow Heavenly Emperor's writing left by the 6 Crow Emperor in his spiritual thought. It has the idea of the 6 Crow Emperor, but it is not the 6 Crow Emperor. Seeing the chasing bird in great anger in front of him, Jian Wushuang's eyes twitched. Listen to my explanation. I didn't deliberately seek death, but troubled myself to find the door. Chasing birds is like the arrival of an emperor, and the golden eyes have a majesty that cannot be seen directly. If it wasn't for my divine mind to protect you, you would have been destroyed by ashes long ago, and I can feel that the power that burns your divine mind is simply beyond your ability to contend. Although I can protect your momentary divine consciousness, it has also greatly consumed my own emperor source. You have to remember, if you continue to be so reckless, I will most likely be unsupported and broken, and you will no longer be able to obtain the entire 6 Crow Heaven Emperor when. Jian Wushuang heard the words, and there was a bit of bitterness in his eyes. I understand, I will definitely not be reckless again. You know what a shit, this emperor is still waiting for the day when you fight Jin Weiyang. You are dead now, isn't that a big joke? Remember to this emperor, if you live well, you must live until the day you become the emperor. I try my best. Wiping Jian Wushuang away, Yu Yao did not stay in the slightest, manipulating Hong Mengzi to leave the broken ruins of the 3 or 5 heavens. She wanted to find Jiang Lian, who had fled before, return to the crowd, and then wipe them out one by one. She is now the quasi-emperor, and all the areas covered by Hong Mengzi are her domain. Feeling the kind of detached air luck, the sadness in Yu Yao's heart finally disappeared completely. She is the quasi-emperor, no one can be an enemy of him. Only another quasi-emperor can fight one. As Yu Yao kept moving forward, the dark sky was swallowed by Hong Mengzi. But the next moment, a breath quietly revealed, causing Yu Yao to stop, standing in the midst of her emperor's luck. Her eyes were slightly solemn. She felt a breath that couldn't be ignored, weird and domineering. When the end of the dim sky was replaced by some unspeakable chaotic aura, Yu Yao's pupils suddenly shrank. Emperor? Jundi. A quasi-emperor. It seems to be to confirm her conjecture, accompanied by the endless chaos, is a terrifying figure that also wears an imperial suit. The figure was like a black cloud, which made people unable to look directly at and indistinct. He was surrounded by strands of twisted and chaotic aura, which was extremely curious. If Jian Wushuang were here at this moment, he would definitely be surprised. Because that came from the chaos, it was the quasi-emperor Heiyun who had been forced by him to understand the emperor's luck in the past. At this moment, he fully recovered, as if he had never explained the emperor's luck. At the same time, between his palms, a thick chain of chaos bound the 4 figures. And those 4 figures were Jiang Lian, Diqing and Fu Yao, who had fled before. They were all caught by the black cloud, they couldn't escape at all, and they were dying. Jundi Heiyun slowly raised his head, facing his eyes. Doubts, incomprehensions, and suspicions came out of his eyes, but then they were replaced by more intense coveting. A quasi-emperor's luck caused him to fall into madness directly. Yu Yao's complexion became completely solemn. She felt the power of the chaotic aura, which was even comparable to her own grandiose and purple meaning, and no one could do anything about it. She had just ascended to the emperor, everything must be stable, and it was obviously not a wise move to be an enemy of another emperor. But the few Dayan immortals she wanted to erase were in the hands of another Jundi at the moment, which made her feel tricky. Eyes facing each other, Hong Mengzi and chaotic aura collided and squeezed, and the sky was directly broken. Yes, luck is really good, to be able to meet an emperor like me here. Heiyun said with a hoarse voice, with a low smile. Yu Yao felt very uncomfortable, quite uncomfortable, and she felt that her spiritual thoughts had begun to be eaten away. But in the end she decided to speak and said coldly, "Those Dayan immortals are what I am chasing. Give them back to me." "Give it back to you?" Heiyun said with a low smile. "Of course not, they are also my enemies of life and death. I will personally crush them into powder." Yu Yao's complexion was uncertain, and in the end he didn't intend to speak. For her, it didn't matter who Jiang Lian died in their hands as long as they died. She turned around to leave, but at this moment, the weird voice of Heiyun sounded again. "Hold on, I want to ask you something." "No comment." Yu Yao replied coldly, ready to leave in an instant. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.